Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Tony Dunn, ain't nothing to it but to do it, brother. Let's roll.
In a world where Carolina Panthers fans have an insatiable thirst for Panthers news and opinions, only one podcast roars ferociously. It's the C3 Panthers Podcast.
The owners are meeting. There's new rules in the mix. Say goodbye to the hip tackle or hip flip slide hip drop tackle, and say hello to the new kickoff rules. It's the C3 Panthers Podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com, where every Tuesday night we chop up the latest Panthers news and opinions from the fan perspective. My name's Tony Dunn. The number's 252-228-5098. Cody, the owners have met. They have spoken, and now we've heard a little bit more from our head coach at these owners meetings. And for me, the best part is seeing our beautiful head coach instead of that slob of a coach, Matt Rule, that we have to look at that stupid picture anymore. Dave Canales goes to dinner for 3 hours with Bryce Young multiple times to establish a relationship, and it can only hope to have a relationship like we have on this podcast with one another and our fans. Cody Lack, what's up, my friend?
Well, if they have dinner anyway, like we do a podcast, they'll be able to talk for 3 hours straight.
3 hours,
and not be able to skip a beat, man. They sound like some real C3 people. But Tony, you're right. The owners meeting is happening now. You have David Tepper barging in on the Pat McAfee show. We have news that former Panthers might still be in play to come back to the team, maybe even more than one. We have so much to talk about here tonight. There's a brand new draft hat. There's always so much to talk about on a Tuesday night, and there's nowhere I'd rather be than with my boys talking Panther football. And we're going to do it with the best damn Panther fans in all of YouTube. Tony, you know I'm going to love them. It's our boys, Panther Pickle, Drew, Al the Sailor, Joey the Blind Panther, Brandon Malone, Daniel Berry Sports, Doug Reeder, Flame for Jesus, Harvey London, Jake the Snake, Kenneth, Matt Knows Nothing, my boy Strats, my man D from Sanford, what's up? Sean Hume, the real C3AP, and Tim Estes. Tony Dunn. Ain't nothing to it but to do it, brother. Let's roll.
Tons to talk about, even though there isn't, and no one better to talk about it with the man with the golden pipe. CK, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, you know, we're out here living dreams, just trying to find our way through this off season of uncertainty. Is the best way to put it at this point. And I'm going to need some people to explain to me, some of these new rule changes, mainly the kickoff. The other stuff seems pretty self-explanatory, but man, I'm just happy to be here with you fellas to talk about it.
You guys hang out and we'll explain those kickoff changes to you. Also, opening week for baseball. Saw the Cubs losing to the Cardinals. Wasn't surprising there. But one thing you can do, guys, as we're trying to pass the offseason, is remember you're in North Carolina and they've made sports gambling illegal in North Carolina. Legal sports betting is now officially live. To celebrate, FanDuel is giving new customers $200 in bonus bets for a limited time. New users who sign up through our link must deposit $10 and place a $5 bet to receive $200 in bonus bets. The best part is that you get your rewards even if your first $5 bet loses. This offer can be claimed by clicking on our link in the show description or by scanning the QR code that we're going to put on the screen. Registering with our link not only gets you these fantastic bonuses, but also directly supports the show. This offer is only around for a few weeks, so don't miss out. Remember to use our link, bit.ly FanDuel.com/launch200 to claim your bonus bets. This offer is available for new customers who are 21 and over, physically present in North Carolina. Please remember to responsibly gamble. Gambling problem? There's people you can reach out to. 877-718-5543. Check the episode for the full description. There's that cool code. Give you a little piece of advice, folks. Make sure you use those bonus bets fast or they go away. Because Tony doesn't know a ton about college basketball, different things like that. So I feel like I'm just clicking numbers. So I was slowly doing it, and I saw some bonus bets melt away. So make sure when you put that money up there, you get after it, like the Carolina Panthers are getting after the offseason, getting after these owner meetings. Guys, tonight's show is Dan finding CK.
Dogs.
Is Dan finding
Dogs.
Oh, my bad. I forgot I had that.
dog?
But it's only got the dog. There's no plural to it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to reclip that one day. Dave Canales, Dan Morgan addressing and all of this. Look, see, first, can I point this out? $1 trillion industry, and CK gave me I won't say hard time about this, but CK is the guy, if you can see his background, he's got a TV for his computer screen, not that one. He's got one over his head that's like as big as a billboard or the big screen at the game. CK would always be like, man, I think we really need to up your camera game. I'd be like, come on, man. It's fine. It's like we're back when we were on Hangouts and we were grabbing it. So not only was the camera not the best, like it still isn't, but you're grabbing a screen from another. So it's naturally deteriorating. And CK's like, come on, man. These people are watching on their TV. Isn't that cool? There are people that all the time. It's like, hey, I put you up on the TV and hang out and watch this.
We're in a restaurant. On Sundays, you know what I mean?
Throw us up there.
Talking about muscles.
Yeah. But I mean, hell, wait until that post game is bigger than anybody's, and they put it up at the bars around Charlotte. I saw Dan Morgan using a freaking ThinkPad from 1998. And then you've got Dave Canales in the owners meeting, and it's like a restaurant. It's like, guys, can't they just go buy some $200 microphones for these mugs? Can you get him a 1080p webcam?
It's so frustrating. The Panthers never have good audio. They never have good audio. They never have good video. And this is something that we used to applaud them for, is the strength of the staff there and what they do online. But now it's
it's not them. It's not just them. What I'm saying is it's these organizations that make so much money that they ultimately don't think they have to work it all for that little bit. Like, and why is their video department not saying? So the audio complaints for all these post press conferences is that the people asking the questions, we don't have them on audio. So you can hear the coach fine. You can hear that. You just don't know what the question is half the time. It just seems like, guys, we're post-pandemic. The pandemic made it so our grandmas know how to Zoom. Come on, folks.
Listen, our boy, Mr. Stratz, as always, is incredible.
I know.
20 gifted memberships to the C3 Panthers podcast. Stratz, we appreciate you, brother. Man, hey, we are still doing draft content, even though people might believe that we're not. We have the month of April coming. We're going to be breaking down some of these best wide receivers. Now, after Dan Morgan has spoken, there's a possibility that edge rusher might be available with that 39th or 33rd pick. So keep tuned to C3 Panthers podcast, man, for $1.99 a month. Join and get that content. We appreciate y'all. Thank you, Stretch.
Cody, take us into the show. I got to refresh my browser. Nobody's mouths are matching their words.
Oh, good.
No problemo. Panther fans, let's jump into it. One of the things that we've been talking about a lot is that we are still deficient at the edge rusher position. Well, CK, much to the joy of our boy White Chocolate Espresso, the Carolina Panthers are still showing strong interest in Jadeveon Clowney and would like to get the deal done. Tony, CK, how likely do you think this is to happen? And at this point, would you still welcome the presence of a Jadeveon Clowney to the Panthers?
Well, why wouldn't you? Number one. Number two, I don't think that the fact that it hasn't happened really indicates much about the deal itself.
Right.
Clowney's been around not only has he been around for a long time, he's done a good job of, once he got out of Texas, it felt like no one was ready to make him the giantest paid player ever. And he was ready to take big money on short-term deals and multiple. And to be honest, it's not a terrible idea because he's probably signed 5 deals and caught the inflation for the position each time he does it. So I don't think the fact that the Panthers haven't signed him at this point is any real indication. I think he is going to be one of those guys who takes their time, probably doesn't want to sign before OTAs. And yeah, I heard Dave Canales talk about the defensive end room or the outside linebacker now, which I hate that I call outside linebackers defensive end still. I know, Chat, you're going to hate me for that. And you're like, he's not accurate. But that's what I look at half of these guys at. And he was talking about DJ Wanham with him. And how he said that if you look at his tape, he showed some really good traits. But they wouldn't mind. Of course, they want a guy on the other side who other teams have to game plan for. So there is but you can't always get what you want, but you find some time. Jadeveon Clowney is what you need.
Well, listen, I'm going to play this clip real quick of Dave Newton asking Dan Morgan basically a little bit about the departure of Brian Burns and how tough of a decision that was. And then after that, we'll talk a little more about the possibility of signing Jadeveon.
I want to ask you, why trade Burns? Who initiated the talk with the Giants, and what was the market for him?
Yeah, those are always difficult conversations and decisions that you have to make from the seat that I'm in. We love Brian, the player he is, the person he is, but sometimes you got to make tough decisions, and salary cap along with draft capital that we got, we felt like it was time to pull the trigger and make a move. We felt like the timing was right, and those are always tough decisions, but we had to make it, and we feel okay about it.
So, Tony, not a lot to be said there when you lose your most tenured defensive end / edge, as you were saying. But I do think that Jadeveon Clowney, now that you have lost Brian Burns, who accounted for the large majority of your sack production, you're going to have somebody with that veteran experience and with all the skill set to be able to come in and start day one. There's somebody else out there that I would prefer over Jadeveon Clowney, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I mean, listen, I really don't think that there's anything better the Panthers could hope for right now, especially to all those Panther fans that are worried that our sack production was already low, and now it's going to be even lower with the absence of Brian Burns. I think we need something like this.
CK, your thoughts before I meander?
I mean, again, we need some veteran presence on the defensive line. The problem with the idea of going after Clowney is Clowney's going to be a lot more expensive for us than he is a team where he could go and try to chase a Super Bowl. That's number one. Number two, he is a one deal It's a 1 year rental, and he
Which is
always
good.
has been and always will be. But the problem is we don't necessarily need just a 1 year rental when we're talking about rebuilding a team. So ultimately, none of us believe this team is going to be a very good team, right? And they could surprise based on how well they play, but they're not a team that's looking to compete. And I just don't know the benefit of basically signing a guy for 1 year for no real benefit to the organization.
Well, I think that is the benefit, though, CK. And just to put it from the different angle, is that you're not sinking long-term money into anybody. You know that it's a position that you're going to have to build at, and that you're not going to be able to get the answer right away. And then next, you're going to get a player who is still productive. And never, the one thing about Clowney that's been pretty cool is like he always gets good money, but he never makes so much money where other teams don't want to kick the tires on him.
Yeah.
And now I will go ahead and lead into your other guy, Cody, is I think that Clowney would be a better fit, though, than the other guy. Oh, I thought you were going to go Hassan Reddick.
Oh, well, we can still talk about.
I think Clowney would be a better fit with the actual players on our roster than Reddick would right now, because again, you got a guy. You're hoping maybe Barno can do something. They mentioned DJ Johnson, Canales talked about today as having potential. You just wonder, is Hassan Reddick a little light in the pants for this defense where you're trying to get bigger in the trenches? But
I feel like we've already heard that about Hassan Reddick for more years than not now, and he still continues to produce.
He's going to want money, though.
Well, yeah. Well, he already has a contract, so it would essentially be a trade.
Oh, okay.
But one of the other player that was really in the headlines, in the news, that was kind of viewed as a tandem with Jadeveon Clowney is former Carolina Panther Stefon Gilmore, who the Panthers are interested in potentially bringing him back for another go-round. How about this? Both him and Jadeveon Clowney went to not only the same college,
but the same draft
USC
class?
Junior. But they went to the same high school.
Oh, wow. Holy fuck. The same high school?
Yeah, they went to the same high school. So they've been sort of tethered to one another. And Joe Person even mentioned them both in the same tweet. So, I mean, it really does look like these are two veteran players that the Panthers could target to bring in right away and be productive for the Panthers, and not worth a lot of money. As you already pinpointed, they're not going to break the bank or anything like that. Do you have any worry about both of these dudes being older? They're a little bit long in the tooth. They've both had some health issues. They've dealt with injuries. Does that concern you, or is this just the best of what the Panthers might potentially be able to do?
Well, name-wise, it's certainly the best. That would get all of us most excited. No, I don't have concerns about their age, honestly. I think Clowney's only like 31. When you look at his age, like he came out, that was the whole thing, is he was so young. That was the era. I think things are going to change now that we got the NIL. I think it's going to do – I think players might not need to go to the draft so quickly, and they can make some loot in college and, get older and get ready for the league. Gilmore's older. Look, Gilmore's not going to be the player that he was when he was with, around the time he was coming to Carolina, because he was arguably still the most shut down corner in the league, or the most reliable. But that's one of those players, man, that is a fine wine, right? Like you might not ask him to shut down the best receiver all day by himself like you did 6-7 years ago. But that guy, with his technique and his play, is going to be good regardless, right? I mean, unless you're just getting blasted by the most athletic dudes in the world. The thing, again, is all these guys, even on a short-term deal, are going to command significant money. They're not going to be cheap one-year rentals, but they won't bust the bank. But, look, the Panthers, My question, I'll ask you this, and we'll start with CK. CK, which position group the Panthers actually need more help immediately? The cornerback room or the defensive end room? Whatever the fuck you guys want to call it.
I think that, dude, that is such a tough one. I think that it's got to be the defensive ends. I just, especially with Wonham being rehabbing whatever happened with a torn quad. I think that's one piece of the puzzle that makes that a more shallow depth at the defensive end. I mean, at least we have what could be considered, if he can stay healthy, a star cornerback in JC Horn. So if we just don't have anybody on the defensive end side of things.
I don't know who our other corners are. The Troy Hill. That's all Hill. I got.
Yeah,
like, that's the only other person on there.
Saying. So at least you're able to pair here's that word that you don't like, the potential of JC Horn mixed with the veteran leadership and the knowledge of a Stefon Gilmore. I mean, Tony, after you lose CJ Henderson, who's now a Houston Texan, or whatever you think about him, he was someone who started for us. You lose Dante Jackson, which, by the way, how full circle is that? The Panthers chose to extend Dante Jackson instead of Stefon Gilmore. And now here we are without Dante and bringing Stefon back to the Panthers. That's Carolina full circle for you. But I really feel like we have to do this, Tony. If we don't sign Gilmore, I don't know. Did you really trust Troy Hill to be your cornerback too going into the season? I sure as hell don't. And if you don't, you're wondering about maybe using one of those high picks to draft one of them.
None of those options are going to give us a tremendous amount of confidence, right? The question is what's best for the long term, I think, for this. Who hurts less? Who's going to cost less would be really one interesting answer. It's like, really, who would cost less on a 1-year deal? Would Clowney be 13 and are they the same exact amount of money almost? I wonder what that would be. I think for me, having Gilmore in the secondary would be most important for this team because I don't know. Actually, it's such a hard question to answer. And no, I don't think Troy Hill's quarterback too. I think he's meant to play the slot. The other is now I hear people continuing to talk about some of these players in the draft, maybe that a good cornerback could fall to the second round. Now, I would say that I think a cornerback or rookie corner might have more opportunity to succeed than a rookie defensive end would. So if that would, but that's just me and my own 2 cents of how I've looked at the draft in the past. So those are some things. We'd love to get your thoughts. The number's 252-228-5098. Do you think the cornerback room or the defensive line needs more help? We'd love to get your thoughts. We've also got Ricky Raines from the Cat Crave blog coming on at around 9:30 or so. We'll see when he's hanging out here. Again, shout out all the people listening. Been fun. Look, it's wonderful to see all you guys showing up to the party. Cody Lack, as these owners have continued. What do we got next, actually? I don't even know. I know I put this up, but I don't even remember what it was.
Well, next, we have a little bit of Dave Canales talking about Bryce Young and how they've been having 3-hour dinners to talk about football. This is a quote from Dave Canales.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, no, I got it. I saw this on Cat Grave as I was getting ready for the show, and what he wanted, ultimately, CK, get it ready, get the button ready.
I got you.
He wanted to stop with the nice guy talk, and he's ready for Bryce Young to get mean and to be a dog. He says this is quote Dave Canales. He says, everyone says he's such a nice kid, he's such a nice guy and all this. And it's like, yeah, but there's an edge there, and you don't play at the level of football that he's played without having an edge, without having that confidence in yourself, to be able to be introspective, to learn the hard lessons, and to be able to communicate it and see it with a hopeful mindset. I think that's one of the things that I've learned about him. He's like, I'm glad I went through this past year. I'm glad I had the challenges of this, because it's very different than anything I've experienced up to this point, and to feel him and to hear his hopefulness for you are headed is exactly where you would hope from this guy, the quarterback, and from a guy that he sees the best going forward, but he wants him to get nasty. And I thought it was in that quote, so now I got to go find what he exactly said. This is what happens when you rush your prep, folks. But hey, super nice, happy, smiley coach tells super happy, nice, smiley quarterback to be a dog.
What did you make of that?
I mean, I think it's honest. Me personally, I was listening to this, and it's clear that he isn't doing what Frank Reich was doing all last year. Many of our coaches were doing, which is coddling Bryce. They were basically, every time Bryce would do something wrong, many of us also in the fandom would also say, Bryce Young isn't doing, it's not his fault, it's somebody else's fault. I'm guilty in that, and I still believe a lot of the things I said, but hindsight always reminds you that maybe that was a little bit more of an exaggeration at that time. And I like that Dan Canales seems to be addressing the actual concerns when it comes to Bryce Young. One of the things I sent in the Four Horsemen, he was on the Insiders as well. He was talking about the footwork and all that stuff as well. And I thought that, again, it was refreshing to have our coach be, honest, while at the same time acknowledge that he has a lot of potential, and he's still the same guy he was coming into the year last year. So it's not like we're dealing with somebody who is who has no potential. He has, the sky is the limit with this guy. And so I think he sees that, and he's excited by it.
Cody, when I think about this is Dave Canales knowing exactly what the most important part of dealing with Bryce going forward is, and it's confidence, right? It is that edge, right? And you just look, everybody knows he's small, right? Everybody knows he's tiny, he's nice, he's done all these things. Everybody knows that he might not be the most physically, he's not the most physically superior specimen on the football field when it comes to height, size, weight, whatever, arm strength. We've all talked about that. But we all referenced, and I heard this guy when we were going up to the draft, and I loved it, and I wish I knew who said it. He was on the radio, local. I think he's kind of local guy, and he's talking about that Auburn. Was it the Auburn game? I ask you this every single time, Cody. What game was it where it's like,
where he led last final drive,
and he's smiling and he's shaking his head and he goes, "Man, this guy looked like a damn psychopath." Auburn. Like, we need that. You need the edge, and once it's gone, like it's like when a knife. I don't know. It's like you just worried that you can't get it back. And for me, I kind of saw this with Cam Newton a little bit. Is there was a moment, I think, after maybe the health and some things, things like where it was like, oh my God, I'm not, where he recognized he wasn't Superman anymore. And sometimes it's like being naive to that is what is your edge. Right. Like, you don't think you can fail. You don't think there's a moment you can't overcome. And so I think he's talking about this. It's like, Bryce, we got to not get it back, but we got to make sure that you don't forget that that's the guy that we drafted. That's the guy you are here. And this all is a mental thing. It's a mental thing when it comes back to a lot of these players. And I can't imagine how difficult it could be on them. I think Bryce A is well suited for this. I think he'll be fine. B, I don't think it was as bad as people say. And look, it was terrible last year. But I think that the fact that he endured all that throughout the season, he survived, He wasn't the worst player on the team. I didn't walk out of last season going, oh, fucking Bryce Young, bitch ass motherfucker.
Well, Tony, maybe you didn't. I know a lot of Panther fans did. Now, I also know that half of our fan base was divided about wanting to draft him in the first place, but he did leave a very sour taste on the tongue of a lot of Panther fans, considering how he was built coming through the draft, as how ready he was and how much he was this elite processor. And we know a little better now, but we also know what Dave Canales said also during that interview. Dave Canales said Bryce Young's depth on his dropbacks were a little bit tied to some of the Panthers' pass protection issues last year, but he didn't view it as that big of a problem, said it's a part of a typical growth for a young quarterback. And I do think that as the offensive line becomes fixed and as they do get some of those finer details smoothed out, that you will see a more calm Bryce Young, that you will see him become more surgical from inside the pocket. I do worry, though, that we need to see a marked improvement from Bryce Young this year if Panther fans are going to believe that this is going to be our franchise-saving quarterback going forward. So I think all of us as a fan base would agree that Dave Canales and Dan Morgan, they have a pretty monumental task ahead of them when you're talking about the development of Bryce.
The number is 252-228-5098. Hop into the show. We've got Ricky Raines coming on in a moment. What do you guys think about Bryce Young and his development? I understand what the fans are thinking, or what you're saying. I don't have a ton of those questions just yet. I need more time because, Cody, when I saw him with time behind an offensive line, he delivered a lot of times, maybe not to the liking of a lot of people, but when he had time, he was not making he wasn't making dumb throws. Guys, let's keep going with the show. My wife is trying to get my attention. Carry on, folks.
Yeah, let's move to CK. This new kickoff rule. Have you heard about this?
I haven't. I've heard of it. I didn't get a chance to dive into it or see any explanations about what it really means. But all I can say is, among a lot of the changes they've made, this seems to be one of the most positive ones that have been well received across the league. So I'm anxious to see why this is such a positive difference.
Yeah. So I'll show a clip of it here in a minute. But essentially what they're doing with the kickoff is kickoffs will remain at the 35-yard line. But the remaining 10 players on the kicking unit will line up at the opposing team's 40-yard line. The receiving team lines up with at least 7 players in the setup zone, a 5-yard area between their own 35 and 30-yard lines, with a maximum of 2 returners can line up in the landing zone. Get this. After the ball is kicked, the kicker cannot cross the 50-yard line, and the 10 kicking team players cannot move until the ball hits the ground or a player in the landing zone or goes into the end zone. The receiving team's players in the setup zone also cannot move until the kick has hit the ground or a player in the landing zone or the end zone. The returners may move at any time before or during the kickoff. Good Lord, is that not a mouthful?
I know.
Tony, I have...
I love it. I love this.
I have a video clip of this. I think this would be much better for the return. I think it'll just make it more interesting and more fun to watch. I'll pull up a clip of it. And this is
all right, go ahead.
Yeah, this is what they did in the XFL, which is now the UFL and the USL. And this is now going to be what our kickoff looks like from now on.
Kicker from the 30. Return team lined up at the opposite 30. Can't move to the ball is fielded. And here goes Keith Humphrey.
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, but this is just bad tackling more than anything.
I know, but
now you understand the concept, though.
All right, this is why, first, I love it. I love it because the most recent rules have negated the kickoff entirely, right? By moving it closer, you kick it out of the end zone every time. Both offensively and defensively, teams enjoy getting the ball on the 25, right? Is because it's like, hey, the clock stopped a lot of times. We know what we're dealing with. It's very static in a way. The problem with the kickoffs and the reason that they have been tweaking them for so long is because it's those high impact hits that are the problem or a problem, a big problem in the NFL for it's not, look, you don't hear a ton about offensive linemen getting concussions. It's about Antonio Brown getting his head decapitated by Vontaze Burfict going across the middle. And when everybody is running full steam, those collisions are head-on car crashes.
I agree with Strats. It does look better in almost every way.
What I love about it,
standpoint.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's interesting about it too is that one is it's not going to be like that play you showed where people are taking it to the house. It's actually going to be less giant plays, right? So a kickoff, the only time a kickoff does anything exciting now is when it does go to the house, right? Like other than that, they are forgettable plays, right? But in this case, what it is every kickoff could be 6, 12. Every kickoff is going to have a little bit of gamesmanship to it. But it's also going to put the ball closer to the 50 every time, which then it's going to lead to more scoring.
Right. I think when I look at this, the thing that I find most intriguing is I don't necessarily agree with the fact that that it won't be as explosive. I think this is going to allow you to see the difference between great and good special teams coaches. And the reason I say that is, I mean, when you see that, like, and I'm not saying it has to be trick plays like that every time, but you have literally now you've got the opportunity to draw up a play. Whereas before it was everybody just ran the exact same thing. You might have different blocking schemes, but for the most part, it was the same play. Whereas this, you actually have the ability to make those, draw up a play that's similar to just like a run play, in the NFL.
Yeah, a little bit more rugby-ish in a way,
right.
And that is, again, the high impact collisions are going to be negated. I think you actually see the ball being moved further down the field. Not further, like big time. Like, I think you'll see the ball on the 30 more, the 35, instead of every time. Look, right now, to be honest, if I was a head coach and we got a kickoff and it came to the one, like, and you were actually catching it, I'm ready to take a knee every time. You know what I mean? Like, it's like getting to the 25 has been difficult for a guy on the 3. But
I like how it adds to the importance of the return man. If you have a dynamic return man that can make people miss, now every kickoff is like a can't miss play. And again, I agree with CK. Once you have the coaches that know how to do the tricky shit and really do some cool things to get guys open in space, I think this is going to be a cool change. And it's one of the rare examples of a change that I'm actually looking forward to.
I don't know if you want the dynamic guy anymore. Maybe you want the Mike Tolbert dude.
I mean, that part that's a part of it. You can put some guys back there that could be Marshawn Lynch-esque,
Yeah. It's like, here, we don't want to take it to the house. We want to get to the 43.
No, that's 100%. I like how there's going to be different ways that you can attack it. There are going to be the teams that want the makes you miss type of guy. And then there are going to be teams that want to just pound you in the face. So I like this rule. I agree with Strats. It seems to me better in almost every way. And I think it's going to make the kickoff more exciting.
I like it. It's a 1-year rule that they have agreed to take away.
And I like that too. I like that they're implementing shit for 1 year at a time, testing it out, seeing how it goes, and they have enough money and power they can just change it if it doesn't work out next season.
I think this is I'm very excited well, first, I understand somebody said they're a purist. Now, does being a purist mean that you just like the original rules?
Yeah,
Because like then would you just like a peach basket instead of a net for a basketball goal if you're a true like I don't think adjustment entirely is a bad idea. I think that it's nice to see an idea to where if we are purist when it comes to the sport, to see that a future NFL where the kickoff still exists. You know, because it's kind of to the point where they're doing these things to make safety or whatever. It's like you might as well just take it away.
Yeah, this
and just let them start at the 25, or who cares about kicking the extra point? Just make the touchdown 7, you know, or whatever. So I do like this idea of somehow continuing to keep this part of the game a part of the game. And I think this is going to be fun. I'm interested in it. I'm all here for it. And if my initial go-to is to get a big ass fullback and a big ass running back and get those mugs barreling and bumbling up the middle, that's what I'm going to be trying to do. My name's Tony Dunn. It's the C3 Panthers podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. We're here every Tuesday night chopping up the latest Panthers news and opinions. We've got a guest tonight, guys. I've been so lazy when it comes to this time of the year. And I messaged Ricky like it was embarrassingly late. So that tells you how much I love this guest. Ricky Rains, Cat Crave blogger here. He said he was doing some editing. Made me feel terrible. Better you than me, Ricky.
No, man, don't feel terrible, man. It's simple stuff, and I do the easy stuff. My co-host does all the hard, heavy lifting. But you know, I also any day that I do like recordings and stuff like that, I'm always pretty jazzed up, anyways, and I've been talking football all day. So when you were like, "Hey, if you want to pop on," it's like, "Yeah, absolutely, man. A couple cold ones to end the night and talk some football with some buddies. Yeah, let's do it."
I mean, we are just this is what I love about. The only reason this podcast continues to exist is because we're just friends talking football, which is like the easiest way to me to close out my Tuesday night.
Hell yeah.
Ricky, we brought you on first. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for being a part of the show. And not a ton of news when it comes to the Carolina Panthers. The owners' meetings have happened. We saw the beautiful Dave Canales out there.
Yeah.
Your initial thoughts on just what you've seen from Dan Morgan and Dave Canales in the last couple of days?
So look, like with the free agency hustle and bustle, right? I like that there seems to be a vision and an approach that actually makes a lot of sense. That building from the inside out, that's music to my heart, right? Like I absolutely love that philosophy. As far as like what I've seen from Canales individually, not a whole lot yet, but there's not a whole lot that we can see, right? Like he's a head coach, man. And until we see an actual football product, I'm not judging him on anything that he's saying. I've kind of learned my lesson on a little bit of that. There was some really beautiful worded things last offseason, and I liked it because it was experienced veteran coaching that had a ton of praise all over the league, right?
Boy, we misled by that shit.
Yeah. And you know what, though, man? I heard something today that kind of like made me feel that way just a second again. And it was when he was talking about being able to compete in every single game and try to win this division.
Yeah.
But half of the fan base has already pretty much tied ourselves to this is a full rebuild. We're not going to be good for a year or two. We're doing this the right way, putting in the diligence of rebuilding. And then Dan says, you know, we're building through the draft. Almost hearkening that same sentiment about a full rebuild. I don't disagree, though, with what Canales said, because I think that there's two ways to interpret it, right? You can interpret it as him saying we should be competitive and we should win every game and challenge for the division. Or you can take it just as a head football coach who says, look, our aim is to get better at playing football. I think we've done that with the acquisitions that we've made. And my job as a coach is to believe in what we're putting together. And I want us to be competitive. Like that is the goal. Yeah. So I'm trying to believe that, but at the same time, reserve a little bit of optimism.
Well, I was about to roll my eyes a little bit at that statement too.
Yeah.
Right. When I heard it, but if in the entirety of the statement, in the context of the statement, He said this is that, I mean, look, is basically he said, look, we're all professional football players here.
Right.
You know, is that like, wow, this team isn't ready to go and say we're going to win a fucking championship next year.
Right.
We're not going to go out there and lay down. We're not, you know, and what and I felt like he said this is that if you execute on good play, if you play football, you play it well, you're always in it. And it wasn't necessarily like roses everywhere. I mean, once he started with that, I was like, oh God, the division talk. Oh my God, the division talk. No more.
Yeah.
But I think with Canales, to your point, Ricky, and as I've been doing this podcast for a minute, so I've seen a couple of iterations of this, and I've been through different phases as a podcaster too, where I get overamped. I was actually impressed with what Canales didn't say. He was asked a couple of questions and he said, don't really know.
Yeah.
Like he was asked about a player. He said, and instead of trying to say something to just fill the void of the answer to the question, I thought,
hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
I thought it was just not refreshing. I just think sometimes not saying something is just as important as saying whatever. And he kind of pumped the brakes a couple of moments to some of the questions, and not in a mean way. He's just like, hey, I don't know, dude. They were asked about the draft. He said, what are you going to do with dude, don't really know.
Yeah. I mean, and you're right, though. Sometimes not saying something, it lends to what his whole appeal is, right? Being genuine. You can't be 100% genuine if you act like you know every single thing or that you have a prepared answer for every single scenario, right? Sometimes when we're having conversations with our friends or anything like that in real life situations, you don't have some quippy little comeback that can answer the question, right? Sometimes you just have to sit there and say, shit, man, like I honestly haven't thought of it that way. Right. Like, what would you do? Right. Like, maybe that's what you can say the next time someone says, what are you going to do in the draft? Say, well, what are you going to do? Like, you tell me what the first 32 teams are going to do, and I'll tell you what I'll do at 33. You know, like, let's make a gentleman's handshake. As long as they stick to their thing, I'll tell you what I do at 33. It's just not how it works, man. It all depends on how everything falls and shakes out from now. There's still free agency to be held. You know, there's still a lot of pre-draft visits and evaluations that are taking place, man. It's a fun time.
Somewhat. I mean, it is fun.
You gotta have fun with it, though, man. Like, what else are you gonna do? It's the lull of sports, right?
Totally the lull of sports. In fact, I didn't even know what we were going to talk about the night half of the show, and then I actually saw some things as we were going along. But sometimes, like, the no news is the better news. Right? I used to have this friend that said you don't win a Super Bowl in March and April and May. You know, and that's why I'm not overly reactive or going crazy when it comes to, like, we didn't do this, we didn't address this, we didn't. Can't do it all in a day. And let's go back to this. And guys, I'm going to ask Ricky this question, and then I have my co-host cover me because I have to reboot or do something because this lips not matching people's voices is driving me nuts. But Ricky, you said there was a plan. And from the moment that free agency was executed, from day one, I thought I saw the plan. And I'm not a football expert by any means. I'm an expert football fan. But to me, when we went out and we said, look, we're not going to sink the assets in this defense right here. If we go and bring back Lou Vu and Brian Burns and sink all our money there and win 2 more games because we strengthened our strength and we had to do so many holes still on that defense. 2024 is about giving Bryce Young enough of an opportunity for us to learn about him and our confidence in him, not this year, but going forward. And to me, that's what they've executed in the plan at every step. And not even about wins, but about executing an opportunity for evaluation. Your thoughts, and I'm I'm redoing my fucking. Excuse me, I shouldn't have cursed because everybody is delayed. Carry on, fellas.
You're good. Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on the approach is pretty much the same, right? That they've made a conscious effort of identifying where the clear problems were last season. You can't get a clear evaluation on what Bryce is or isn't, and that's been a hot topic for fans, right? For Panthers fans to say, did we make the right pick? Did we not make the right pick? If it's that hot of a topic for us, imagine what it must be for the front office, right? That their jobs are on the line and dependent on that thing. So yeah, man, I mean, I see the vision of understanding that trenches are how you're going to have to build and then put skill positions around. And for the draft, I mean, what are you going to do, man? You want rookies to be in front of Bryce Young to do that evaluation, or do you want veteran players? You probably want veteran players, right?
You're speaking to the choir, because that was a point that I was making. Is this shows me that the places that they wanted veterans was on that offensive line. Right. That was more important to them than having veterans on the defense. That's not saying that we can't have veterans and that they're not going to be interested in getting veterans. But right now, 100%, this is a matter of these are moves to allow you to properly evaluate Bryce. It's a 100% a move to make sure that they know what they're doing next year. Because that tells me, number one, if things don't go well this year, there is a very good chance that it is sayonara Bryce as far as
could be
the future of the Carolina Panthers being banked on him. Right. This year, you have to bank on him being the guy and moving forward. But next year, if things don't go well this year, it's going to be, we're bringing somebody in to compete. It is no longer guaranteed that Bryce Young is the guy.
For sure. And go, man.
Well, no, I was going to say to that note, I think you made a good point of Dan Morgan doing everything in his power to fill all the holes that we have on this team. And yet there are still a lot of people that are really worried about this defense after you lose Frankie Louvu. Now you've traded away Brian Burns. There's a lot of turnaround on this defense. There's no more Dante Jackson. But that brings up a point, is what do you feel is the biggest hole on this defense right now? And it's already hit the rumor mill via Joe Person that Jadeveon Clowney and Stefon Gilmore are both possibilities for the Panthers. I mean, I feel like most fans would like both of them at this point. Yeah. But you had to break it down between corner or edge or outside linebacker, however you want to say it.
Right.
What is the biggest position of need right now on this Panthers defense? And do you think that either of these guys are perhaps the answer to what our defense might need?
Well, so for me, it's definitely a pass rusher, an edge. I understand the need in corner, and I absolutely want to bolster that room. But right now, DJ Wanham is your one as an edge rusher, right? DJ Wanham, dude, and this is no slight to him, but all sacks aren't created equally, right? His 8 sacks weren't one-on-one win sacks. He had a lot of cleanup work, and that's great because it shows a ton of effort. It shows sticking with plays and still being a in the right place at the right time player. That's still very valuable. Like, I'm not trying to diminish what he is and what he's accomplished, but he's not a one-on-one winner. So when you look at the rest of that room, where is the one-on-one winner? There isn't one. You have to have somebody that can put pressure on the quarterback. It's one of the premier positions, especially in today's NFL. You have to get a quarterback uncomfortable. It's the way that you beat the greats of all time. It's the way that you beat these young kids and make them confused on what they haven't seen in the NFL and make them react quicker, right? So for me, I don't know that Jadeveon Clowney necessarily solves that puzzle, but what it does is it helps DJ Wanham a whole lot. Because if you don't have somebody on that opposite side that's creating those cleanup opportunities, then DJ can't do that. DJ has to be the one who's facilitating that pass rush. And if it's not going to be a Jadeveon Clowney or bringing somebody else in, what are we talking about? We're banking on DJ Johnson? Are we banking on Amari Barno? I mean, I'm a huge Iku Leota guy. I was really happy that he got called up and got some active reps. I hope that he progresses and develops in the offseason, but are we really going to go into the season saying that that is where we hang our hat as far as creating a pass rush? Maybe you allocate some of that to the draft at an early position, but then you kind of have to weigh in, do I want a center right? Like we're going in with Austin Corbett, man, at center. That's a tough situation itself. But for me, the defense, it's lacking in the edge rusher first, and then I go secondary.
Yeah.
All right. Cody had to bounce, not been feeling well. We thank him for hanging out with us while he can. The number's 252-228-5098. Ricky, you can stay. Please stay as long as you want. You can hang out for the calls and all of that. As we continue, because I had to do a full reboot, and now everybody.
Is everything working better now?
You guys match.
Oh, good.
Have you ever watched? You guys know what it's like to watch a show where the lips don't match.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
It is annoying as shit.
Brutal.
It is bad. And maybe that's why we're such visual. Well, not all. It's not.
Speaking of watching something, Tony, can I talk real quick to you specifically? Because we had a conversation about the Roadhouse remake on Twitter.
Oh, you didn't like it?
I was able to throw it on in the background the other day while I was working on some stuff. And it scratched this weird itch for me, man. I didn't like Conor McGregor at all in it. Every time he came on,
he sucked. You're right. I didn't
terrible.
like him.
But I'll tell you, man, there was a real like chintzy itch that it scratched for me as a Roadhouse guy, man.
I agree.
I'll probably watch it 4 or 5 more times to figure out how much I dislike it.
I've watched it twice. I've watched it twice. Well, once I watched like 3/4 through, and I had a couple of too many beers by the end, and I wasn't paying, no, it's first Jake Gyllenhaal. I always say his fucking name.
You got it right. Jake Gyllenhaal
is incredible. And not in that movie necessarily, but as an actor. Like he really is an incredible actor. Like his range he's done.
Yeah.
And so I saw this, and what made me interested when you brought that up, Ricky, is it was probably about a month ago, I guess, when they started promoting the movie.
Yeah.
And I saw some people and they were like, whatever, Gyllenhaal. And I was like, dude, have you not seen Southpaw? Have you guys seen Southpaw? The movie Southpaw?
Yeah.
Dude, this motherfucker is ripped. Like whatever he had going on between his chest and his junk was like HGH, bro. I mean, there was so much, but you're right. Conor McGregor was the worst part of the movie.
God, it was bad. Like, dude,
he's so big, though.
He's giant, and in a weird way too, right? Like his body's just kind of strange. Like you're talking about Gyllenhaal's physique. He's just this like brick house dense piece of muscle.
Yes, yeah.
And then Conor is this weird like half dinosaur, half pigeon, like chest wide, like huge wingspan, but in a really intimidating way. I don't want to say that in the wrong way because he'll kick my ass. But when you're talking about what Gyllenhaal looks like physique wise, I'm always reminded of that scene. I think it's This Is 40. Where they go, Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen go to like the Circus Olay or whatever, and they're tripping mushrooms and they're watching it and they see these giant, great shaped guys lifting each other up. He's like, I would look exactly like that if I shaved my chest. I'm like, every time I see it, I'm like, that's all it takes, right?
So I watched it, and here we'll move on from this. I watched it last night with my wife and her sister. And I hadn't told them that I watched some of it. So, I was like, oh, why don't we watch that? They were like, oh, because you're trying to find a movie nobody's seen.
Right.
And they kept talking junk about McGregor. And I was like, no, he's like the real motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Like he is like the guy that is the only dude that's ever boxed outside of the UFC or whatever he is and held his own a little bit. And they were like, and what I was surprised by is like they said, he's not weird. He's not ugly. We just wish he would shut up.
Yeah.
And I was like, and they were like, yeah, and his body is kind of odd shaped. But they were like, I thought it was going to be like, oh, he's just like this goon that they know. And they were like, man, stop talking.
Just talking, man. Like,
and I was like, oh, he really is Irish. And they were like, well, he ain't intimidating Irish.
No. And how can you really be it to an extent, right? Because like everything I just heard, it reminded me of the horror movie, the Leprechaun horror movie.
My favorite.
Every time that he would say something menacing, it was like a very evil Lucky Charms ad. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. That's what's creepy. Don't forget, Jennifer Aniston and Kevin Bacon were both in Leprechaun.
And there's your 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon right there.
Yeah, there you go. So as we continue to break down just a little bit, we're getting to the calls in just a moment. We went through Oh, Dan Morgan was asked a couple of things. He was asked about Brian Burns. Not Brian Burns. We're not talking about Brian Burns anymore. Derrick Brown, it sounds like they are in the works of negotiating a contract with him. Obviously, I think everybody in the room is hopeful for that. And do you think that the Brian Burns situation is going to inform or have any influence on how the Panthers have to deal with Derrick Brown?
To an extent, but I don't think as much as it would have if this was still Fitterer and company leading the charge, right? There's got to be some sort of like poor taste about the way that this team has handled negotiations with in-house developed players. But at the same time, I think what happened when he traded him and then he came out today and he said, look, man, we made the decision. Now's the time. We're getting off this saga. Like, let Brian go do whatever he can. Yeah. Best of luck to him. But we needed to move on. I think that what that does show is that this is a different regime. We're not going to be as antsy about what we're doing. We're going to be decisive. We're going to go for things. So if they're having this conversation with Derrick Brown right now, and I believe Drew Rosenhaus is his agent, if
you're right.
Correctly, that's not an agent that is playing games. So they know that they're not going to be able to like swindle him into taking something that's not a fair deal for his client, right? So if they're at the table speaking now, I think that it's with intent of signing that deal. I like that they're having those conversations. I would like it way more if that was signed and done before the regular season started, to be completely honest.
So we're not dealing with another scenario where we're questioning whether he's going to play on his rookie or on the fifth-year option or anything along those lines. Here, my opinion on the matter is I think that Brian Burns being traded shows how much more they value Derrick Brown than they did Brian Burns. And I know that sounds weird and we have no evidence to corroborate that. But if I'm Derrick Brown, I'm looking at this. They're coming to the table. They're willing to pay me and they let go of Brian Burns. That tells me that they really want me. In the middle of a rebuild, they were still offering me these type of contracts. That shows that they want me to stick around. Now that could hurt our leverage, to be fair, but I think that if I'm Derrick Brown, I look at this as a compliment.
We're not going to fall too much into the Brian Burns discussion because we have been discussing it ad nauseum on this podcast for 2 months, maybe 2 years. But I don't think they really handled it terribly wrong. I mean, I guess if you throw a couple of caveats on what they could have done in the past, that would have gotten you more out of it. Then you go, oh, yeah. The other thing is, and what they did handle wrong, Ricky, for me, was putting their eggs in the Brian Burns basket, but then not making the omelet ever is what I would think is like, look, is you had the Hassan Reddick moment where you said, look, they let Hassan go. It was like Brian Burns is our staple, our core, this is who we're going to build around. So to me, the only negative way that they handled anything was just not going through with what they originally thought they were or something to that effect. I think they actually did the right thing in this case. But I would say when it comes to Derrick Brown, if they were going to give him top 5 DT money, which, I mean, of course, that's what he's going to get.
Sure.
And it's hard for me. A month ago, this point would have made a lot more sense. But the Chris Jones contract is so big, like it's changed a little bit of the numbers. Isn't a top 5 at defensive tackle cheaper than a top 5 at defensive end or offensive? Yeah. And that to me is like, okay, like if you want to overpay Derrick Brown a little bit, or a lot, even a lot of bit, it's still not on the scale of what overpaying one of these bigger positions would be. But Chris Jones made it complicated.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. But what Chris Jones also kind of does there is almost in a way what Nick Bosa did by setting that market, right? But he can do it in a way of where the player that we're talking about of Derrick Brown and Chris Jones are wildly different players. Yeah, what they bring to the team are wildly different. And why edge rushers and outside linebackers or defensive ends, whatever you want to categorize them as, right? Why they're so valuable is the disruptive nature, the sacks, the turnovers, and getting quarterbacks out of rhythm. Derrick Brown doesn't necessarily bring that right now. I think he's fully capable of being better in that field than what he's been doing, but they've been tasking him with absolutely everything on the defensive front. You know, like, hey, if we got the worst run defense in the league, somebody needs to help us. Derrick is the one who's chasing down
from day one. From
exactly.
day one, we had the worst run defense ever, it felt like. And it didn't get better overnight, but he has been part of it improving.
For sure.
Or if it's improved at all, you could just point to him he's gotten better every year.
Agreed. And just because he's not accumulating huge sack production totals doesn't mean that he's not disruptive, doesn't mean that he's not accounted for as a defensive player that the opposing team is game planning for. But there is enough there that you can say different than Chris Jones, right? Different even than a Dexter Lawrence or a Christian Wilkins type of player. Like, they are different, but that doesn't devalue what Derrick Brown is. I see him getting that top 5 contract, and I think that he's earned that and deserves it. But
Chris Jones is an outlier. You're like kind of maybe like Aaron Donald has been for the last 3 years. Well, that's good news.
I mean, that's how I would see it, right? Like, I still think that there's some comparison with the money. He's going to bring it up, but I don't imagine he's going to look at Chris Jones and say, "That's what I want." Like, I want that same thing,
right?
Because that's not the smartest way of going about it. You end up in that Brian Burns position where you're betting on yourself. And look, maybe that works out. It worked out for Brian. He got a ton of money. I also believe in Brian a lot, that he could have had a much better situation here. I'm interested to see what happens there in New York. I think that's going to be really interesting to see what happens with.
I think it was. Go ahead, CK.
I was going to say, one of the things that I spoke on, and I wish no ill will to Brian Burns.
Sure.
I think Brian Burns being in New York is going to be I think it's going to unlock Thibodeau. In my opinion, I think that Brian Burns isn't going to live up to the contract. He might, and it's possible that he does. I think it's going to be that he is now going to open up the door for Thibodeau to take that step and become a massive pass rusher in this league.
I'd be a little cautious on some of all of this for me, myself, and I don't know. Other people might know more. Clearly, I'm sure they do. But if I'm not wrong, I believe the New York Giants just fired their defensive coordinator and Wink Martindale last year after saying Wink was the fucking genius the year before. I believe also that they struggled mightily against the run last year, like the Carolina Panthers did. And so I think Brian Burns is a good player. I don't think he's great. I think or maybe a very good player. I don't think he's elite. And I'm not going to change but I wish the best for him, and a better situation can do him better, I'm sure. But I don't know if that Giants, they got some Dexter Lawrence, right? CK. Yep. They've got Thibodeau and they got this, but they struggled against the run. And really is for all of these things, even Ricky just said it, under the circumstances, we always have these caveats, is, and fairness to Brian Burns, like the sack number wasn't high because they weren't ever in passing downs. So if he runs into a situation where a team just says, you know what, screw it, let's just run at these motherfuckers. That's not going to help him.
Same situation, right?
So I hope it does work out. The number's 252-228-5098. We're going to take a couple of calls here and see what the fans got to say.
So what are your thoughts on catcalling?
Yeah, it's pretty you shouldn't do that to somebody.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person feel?
It feels good, like.
Who's that cat sitting in the back corner with his face buried in his nose? Who's that kid that can use
one? What up, Strats? Hope you guys are doing all right. I don't know, but I swear every time I make a call, it's always the last call to go. But it's fine.
I'm playing you first, baby.
Probably my timing, if anything, more than anything. But what I do want to say is hell of a blast hanging out in the spaces. You get to obviously voice a lot of input and stuff. So I got to give a big shout out to Pickle and Deez and really all that crew that's putting those things on. They're doing a hell of a job.
Yeah.
We got some great discussions that tend to overlap, obviously, since we all talk Panthers football with some of the concepts you guys had going on tonight and previous nights. Sorry. Yeah. And the main takeaway is I don't want to get too excited because of last year, but Canales and Dan Morgan seem to be on the same page working together. And I love that Canales kind of mentioned today in that video that dropped, focusing on the fundamentals. And I can't accentuate this enough. I think the more I think about this, the more I think that really was, and I hate to use the same word twice now, the fundamental problem that we had last year. And that, I keep thinking back to that one game when we played the Seattle, and we had 3 false starts like back to back to back, and then Bryce with his footwork, and then you had people missing blocks, and you had wide receivers not knowing how to run routes. Fundamentals. Fundamental. They're fundamental to the fucking game. I'm just thankful that hopefully it sounds like, and I hope it is the case, that we really truly do focus on that this year. And I think if that happens, that we see some good stuff. So I'll leave it at that. Keep pounding.
Thank you, Strats, for jumping in the calls at 252-228-5098, as well as the spaces that are held by the C3 Legion. And here, given the gift, the greatest gift of the C3 Superfan for $1.99, you can help support the longest running Panthers podcast. As he brings up this, he says, look, as he's again cautions not trying to get excited. And to me, that actually is the exciting part, guys.
Yeah.
Is that we didn't get Ben Johnson as the coach. We didn't get the name that all of a sudden requires inflated expectations to me. What I feel like, and when he goes back to fundamentals, is that we are actually happy with the idea of just trying to play a better down, trying to play a better quarter, trying to play a better game. And I don't want to say there's nowhere you can go down, because I said that I said it couldn't get worse after Matt Rule, and it did. But to me, my expectation, it's not that I expect to be disappointed. It's just like, man, I feel like it's almost liberating now. We have got the ick. It's just like this. Just go out there and win a down for me, baby.
Yeah. Well, if we end up being a really bad team next year, is anyone going to be surprised?
No.
If we end up going out and being competitive and finish a couple games under 500, is everyone going to be amped up? Probably.
Or
not
just be
like
heartened. You know, just be heartened. You know,
encouraged.
Yeah, that's it. I just want to know that.
But encouragement is a feeling that I haven't felt in years, man, with this Panthers team, right? Optimism and like romanticizing a roster have been things that I've been doing, but actual feeling encouraged and believing in the trajectory of the team, it's been a long time, man. And I think the Canales has that at his advantage, like you're alluding to right now. He doesn't have the pressure. Like he's a first-time head coach that was not the hottest name. If he succeeds, man, we're super smart. If he doesn't, yeah, okay. Okay, we didn't swing and miss. That's not what happened.
That's a great way to put it too, because unlike Matt Rule,
it's
like there was the risk. You know, it's like you're going up there and you're trying to hit a home run. I think Dave Canales is us just trying to put together, just go up there and get on base.
Yeah,
get on base. You know, if it's a walk, if it's hit by a ball, if it's you know what I'm saying, just get on base, bro.
That's it. Whatever it takes, man.
But I will, in defensive, because I don't want it to sound like I'm just Mr. Wisdom here saying this and that. I fully bought into the Frank Reich shit.
Yeah.
I bought.
So did I.
I just thought, man, this is going to be better than, and I have never seen such a shit show.
Yep.
It was the most disastrous of a season I've
100%.
ever seen for the Panthers.
Especially with everyone they brought in. I mean, just everything that they brought in and the way that they sold it, there was no way that you could have foreseen. Now, look, I'm not saying that everyone should have thought that it was going to be the 10 wins that I predicted.
No, I thought it was going to be 7. I thought it was 7. I was like, I thought the worst was 7. The best was 9.
Yeah, but either way, you thought it was better than what Rule had been able to accomplish his entire tenure here, right? Just coming in, even if it was a similar roster, you still felt, no, there's enough there that a good coach can get us to 7 or 8 wins.
Yeah. That's how I felt.
Thought that's Frank Reich was. Now, and in fairness to Frank, I don't think he's like a bad coach necessarily. I don't think this was the right situation, and I don't think it was the right time. But hey, look, that's in the past. I don't want to harp on any of the past stuff, but I think that when we look at this new situation, it feels entirely different than a retread. And maybe that's part of what everyone could be very excited about and hopeful about, is that it at bare minimum is a different approach.
I've been trying, Ricky, and we won't argue over it. Not that you would argue with me, but Cody and CK and I have argued over the semantics of this, the difference between a rebuild, a retool, and what I call this is a build.
Sure.
This isn't a rebuild. It's not a retool. This is building.
Sure.
We are, the only thing that we showed up to this job with was our hammer, Bryce Young.
That's
like, I mean, we're a carpenter and we ain't got no tools, but I got my old trusty, I got my Bryce Young hammer, and that's
maybe, it. And maybe you've got like a ruler, a pencil, and a piece of paper. So
and a Derrick Brown belt, an oversized Derrick Brown belt.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you're like Tim the Toolman Taylor. You got just a good hammer and a good belt, and then a sidekick.
I'm showing up here for a good day at work, and to me, though, that's I cannot say. I think the Dave Canales hire was the best you could have done.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he's going to be good or not. I don't know if he's going to be good or not. I don't know if he's going to be good at a head coach. He's never been one. But I think you didn't have the opportunity to get any big names. Mm-hmm. If you did get a big name, like a Mike Vrabel or somebody like that, it was just to get a big name. And then you would have the clashing of big, giant dick with a big giant bank account, David Tepper.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is that look is that, I mean, if anything, you just said Dave Canales has helped other quarterbacks get better. And that's
bare minimum.
Yeah. So
I really don't think that's even that controversial. I mean, that's one of the major appeals, in my opinion, about what he brings to the table. And one of the things I do love about him, and again, I will resist saying overly positive things, because one of the things with regard to Rule and even Frank was the coach speak, right? The coach speak was always, and I would always defend it. I would always be the mindset of, oh man, the coach speak is what else are they going to be able to say? What are they going to say? What are you going to do? What are you going to say? Right? Well, Canales is still doing coach speak, but he's also doing it in the most genuine way that I've heard so far. So I do like that, but again, I'm not about to crown him before our team even gets to take the field, before we even get a chance to see what the draft looks like or anything along those lines. I think that is a mistake that we made way too often under different regimes, and I am not willing to put myself through that agony anymore.
And what is truly crowning someone at this point right now? For me, crowning him, like when I say I don't want to crown him, it's like I almost just mean like I don't want to say he's going to be the coach in 2026.
Right.
That's crowning him for me at this point. Is like, oh my gosh, you're going to make it 2 years. No, I'm excited about him. And you mentioned it, Ricky, earlier when you said that he is authentic.
Yeah.
This is something that I've been on for a minute on this podcast is if you're cool, people don't try to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They just are.
That's it.
Dave Canales is so nice. It's annoying. It is freaking, and like Bryce is like this too. It's like, man, you always say you're always happy. You're always saying the right shit. You're always, I want to be like you. But there's a guy that I work with, and I call him Jeff Happy Smiley. And it doesn't get annoying because he really is that.
Right.
Like he really, it's not like a thing that he's just trying like a stick.
It's not an act.
He just, and that's what I see with Dave Canales that I feel like I'm like,
I agree.
Is like, it's authentic.
And part of why I buy into it so much too is that it's still a little bit funky. Like his niceness still has this little bit of weird tinge to it, which is very Pete Carroll, right? Like Pete Carroll seems like the most upbeat, awesome dude in the world, but he's a weird dude, man. Like the way he comes across, you can just tell that like he probably has like a jar of toenail clippings or something at his house. But like he's super duper nice and like you would love to hang out with him, but he's got something weird going on that you don't need to know about, right? Maybe that's Canales. Like there's got to be something funky there. But honestly, I saw the report about him and Bryce like having a 3-hour-long dinner or something like that and trying to connect on an emotional level. I guarantee you that was just the sweetest, most respectful conversation you have probably ever witnessed, man. Like
Tony's there being like, let's take shots, dude. Let's fucking get
I bet you that wager's got such a big tip.
Oh, 100%, man. You know what I mean? And they probably explained why they gave her such a big tip too. Like, listen, you were absolutely terrific. Attentive, you made us feel heard. Like
my ice never got dry. Yeah. I mean, you were the most attentive.
For the perfect amount of time, but you didn't linger. Like it just.
I mean, and it shows you when you come to work and you work every day and you do the right things and you don't turn the ball over.
You can do.
You can get these. All right,
let's as long as you act that way.
Actually, that would be wonderful to see. And I feel like it though. CK would have been at his wife's at his house.
Oh, who knows?
You think it was at a restaurant? Like I feel like it's like, hey, we're gonna eat dinner. You're gonna meet my kids. Then we're gonna go into the den and we're gonna watch you beat USC's ass or some shit like this. And then we're going to go step outside from. That's a great question. This is where we need to be in. The fucking media is like, that would be our question. So when you had this 3-hour, was it at a restaurant or for a long walk on a terrace together?
How many books did Bryce read your kids to bed?
Did you
guys all wear the same pajamas?
Did you look at my family and realize that if you don't play well, you're taking food off of the table?
No. And next time, if you don't play well, sir, at November when we have this dinner, you'll be sitting at the children's table.
That's right. You'll be sitting at that small one right over there, and I won't cut up your chicken nuggets for you either.
Oh, my God. All right, let's take another call. CK, cover me on the response initially.
You gotcha.
C3 friends, hope all is well. I just wanted to call in. I'm not going to be able to listen to the show tonight. I'll listen to tape delay tomorrow. My daughter started rugby, man. I'll tell you what, that shit is crazy. These high school girls are nuts. But yeah, I can't wait to listen to the show tomorrow. I don't know what you guys are going to talk about. I just wanted to say I am super excited about the direction of this team. But man, listening to you guys the last 3 weeks, there is a lot of excitement for a shitty team. I don't know. I think everybody's getting a little overhyped. I look at these position groups, man. I mean, the changes we made, there's still the draft. There's still a little bit of movement to be done, but when you break it down, that O-line went from an F to a C minus, maybe. I don't know, maybe a D plus. It's still not a great O-line. At D-line, all right, from a C plus to a B minus. Wide receiver group, they're an F minus. They're still not that great. I mean, we got one receiver still, 1.5 for Thielen.
Minus seems harsh.
I don't know, man. Safety's looking good. Edge rush went from a C minus to an, I don't know. Tony, you're the professor. Can you get a negative grade, like a -7?
It's a G, I think. It's the one after F.
I don't know. I think everybody needs to slow the roll. I think it was Nick out in Seattle that said embrace the suck this year. And I think that's what we got to do, man. We can't be making any rash moves. Everybody's still wanting Jadeveon Clowney and T. Higgins, and man, we gotta save those picks for next year. We gotta stock up, man. Panthers have a chance in 25. Slow the roll. Just enjoy watching Bryce get better. Hopefully, he's got more than 1.2 seconds to get rid of the ball this year, and man, keep that little man upright. All right. Love what you guys do. Everybody keep pounding. Happy spring.
Keep pounding. I don't disagree. I mean, I don't think I'm not going to sit here and be the one to tell Panthers fans they should be positive after how last year went, right? I think there was so much optimism around this team. And so I don't disagree. However, the other side of this is I'm not going to tell fans not to be excited either. Right.
Sure.
A firm, one of my core beliefs is to live, life by faith. And faith is a hard thing to have when you are dealing with no evidence that it's going to be actually met with any sense of promise or certainty. But here we are, and we're Panthers fans, and we love this team. And that for that reason, I believe that it's okay to have some optimism. I think it's also
choose to be miserable too.
Exactly. And
right?
that's what
my dad always used to say this to me as a kid. He said, renew your mind. And I'm adopted. My father adopted me. He's the best dude in the whole world. But he also got a young kid that he didn't have like this.
Yeah.
And one of the things I always laugh is like how he would talk to me. He'd be like, I'd just be like a 5-year-old, be like, renew your mind. I'm like, all right, yeah, Dad. Like, and he's the best dude. But my point being is like, we can choose how to think sometimes. And that doesn't mean that you choose to think things that are wrong, but you can choose to be unhappy, right? Like, I mean, when you go to a restaurant and like you go to the restaurant that they went to and think of the opposite table. Think of the Panthers Twitter table versus the Dave Canales and Bryce Young table.
Sure.
And it'd be like, bitch didn't bring my water fast enough.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Like you can choose. And that's where I think the Dave Canales thing, Ricky, is kind of liberating to us a little bit, is to me being optimistic. If you ask me what being optimistic is, it doesn't mean wins. I don't know what it means. I don't know exactly what to quantify it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like, hey, man, it's like I'm ready to see what happens.
Sure. And for the caller's sake too, the point that he was making there about like telling fans to kind of pump the brakes a little bit on the excitement and like look at the position groups, like we haven't really gotten that much better. I get that. And I don't think that he's necessarily incorrect for saying, hey, take it easy a little bit on the hype train. But what I would say is that there are different kinds of trains, right? Like there are bullet trains, there are slow trains,
right.
there are little 2-seater trains.
Derailed trains.
We're not on the bullet train of excitement and hope here. Like we are on we're just happy to be a train kind of train right now, right? Like I am looking at the smallest wins and I'm saying that's more than what we had last season, right? Getting Deontay Johnson, he gives us an F- in the receiver room. I agree that wide receiver room still needs a lot of improvement and talent to upgrade it. But Deontay Johnson is something that we did not have anything remotely near last season. Getting him right now for the cost of Dante Jackson and a swap of late round picks.
Yeah.
That's a win.
I mean, his last year of his rookie contract.
That's a win, man. Like let's celebrate the wins that are actual wins, right? And if I think that if you can maintain a little bit of optimism while also maintaining a little bit of realism, that's the best approach about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, it's like you just don't have to say that all of a sudden that every move means that everything's going to be great. But
that's right. But it also doesn't mean that everything sucks still.
My thing is like at the very worst, it can only be lateral when you're 2-15.
Oh, careful!
And I know. I know those exist, but when you look at the team, and not player for player, there were a lot of just problems on last year's team,
for sure.
So I mean, I don't know. I just don't like the idea that you're getting worse. You're getting worse. Like, okay, I guess I drove a fucking beat up fucking Pinto or what? You know what I mean? Anyway.
Well, and the other thing though too is that coaching matters a whole lot. We just saw that last season. So even if we'd have kept the roster 100% the same, right? I like to throw out this hypothetical when everyone says, yeah, but look at the roster turnover and all that. And look, I don't love the way that the defense has kind of been pillaged a little bit in order for the offense to grow, but the offense was so depleted and decimated, you had to do something drastic, quick, because you already invested in that rookie quarterback. That window closes. There is a time limit on that. So you have to do something and you have to figure it out quick. But even if you keep the roster 100% the same, if you go up in wins with a different coach, that tells you right there that it's not all roster talent that's the problem. You also had the infrastructure and the surroundings around these players that just wasn't conducive to winning football, and they weren't being put in the right positions. What we did by trying to identify core weaknesses, right? Because he talks about the offensive line. He said, what did you say? A C-, I think was what the caller gave him.
A C- on the offensive line.
On the offensive line.
Yeah. Man, I should have stuck around for this goal.
My biggest issue with that one is just the center position, man. I don't feel good at all about going into the season with Austin Corbett experimenting at center. I know that they say that he's played it before.
He played in Cleveland
in preseason and in training camp. He never.
Oh, so he didn't. Okay,
never. Nice. He never won those. He never won those position battles in preseason and in training camp. Now, granted, his time in Cleveland, he also had not reached the abilities that he met in LA. In LA, they also gave him some reps at center in preseason and training camp, but found out that he was better suited for right guard, which if that tells you that center wasn't working out terrifically for him when they tried it 2 different times, I don't necessarily want to go into the season with a guy that could not win those battles when he was younger without 2 multiple significant leg injuries. And now he's coming off of those, and we're banking on that to solidify the center position where we just allocated $150 million to the guards. I would prioritize center in the draft. And I just had shameless plug here. I just had Ian Cummings from Pro Football Network on the podcast today. It'll be out tomorrow. And we talk about the center, and we talk about the levels and the tiers of if we don't get Zach Frazier, right? If he's not there at 33, we know that JPJ is probably gone. But if you wait until later, there's some good players, right? Bo Limmer, Tanner Bortolini are good prospects, but they are tiers below these other 2 guys. So if you're serious about bolstering that interior, I don't think that it's out of the question that the Panthers look at 33 at Zach Frazier.
Before we go to the next call, tell them how they can find that podcast tomorrow. Because now you've got over 200 people watching and listening. It's a good time for them.
So tomorrow,
dive into that.
Yeah, the podcast used to be Kitty Lit Podcast. We have done a rebrand, and I've kind of taken it in a different direction because my co-host has bought a bar in New York. So we've changed it up a little bit, and the show is now just the Bo Body Show.
Perfect.
Yeah, I love it, man. We get to get into a little bit more than just NFL, kind of have a little bit of fun with it. But it'll be on Apple Music, YouTube, all at the Bo Body Show. Look out for it. It'll probably be out around 9-10 in the morning, something like that. And I'll tweet out links. You can check my Twitter or the Bo Body Show official Twitter.
All right, perfect. Let's take another call.
What's up, guys? It's Chase from Anderson. What's up, fellas? Chicky. So the NFL is making it a penalty and banning the hip drop tackle to avoid injuries.
Yep.
They're so worried about players' quote safety, yet players are more concerned about playing on Thursday nights because of the such a short rest and preparation week. And then now that Christmas is on Wednesday this year, they're going to have games on Wednesday, an even shorter week. NFL, what are you doing?
They're having games on Wednesday?
You don't care about player safety. You care about views, about the excitement of the game. They want a higher scoring game. They're just going to keep making it more harder for defenses to play defense, right? Eventually, there's going to be no tackling at all. Ridiculous. And for the draft, for the people that likes to do the whole trading down thing in the draft are the same people that complain that we don't have a first-round pick. But you want to trade down from the closest thing we have from a first-round pick? Fuck off. Fuck off to all the ones that wants to trade down all the time in the fucking draft. Trade down, watch what good players are left taken off the board, and then bitch about how bad the draft selection was, well, you should have drafted this nobody. You should have drafted this nobody. Well, guess what? You fucking wanted to trade down all this fucking good players are gone. Fuck off of this trade down shit.
Don't worry. My mom knows this show gets wild. I don't know how to feel about the trade down right away because I am a trade down dude when it comes to building, not rebuilding, but building. So if we could get 240 picks, for a 39, to me, or 30, that all of a sudden becomes, because once you get outside the top 15, it's so subjective in what these guys are truly ranked and this and that. So unless you have a guy that you truly think is going to be a difference maker right away, I think trading down should be an option. I think also now if the Falcons and the Eagles maybe get stripped, and I don't know if that's off the table yet. I haven't heard anything else about that, but that would be cool if we could, move up. But, really is this, you're talking about the difference between a Vernon Butler, this and that. And I don't know, at this point, I just don't expect a guy picked at 33. This is why I don't go crazy about these wide receivers. All of a sudden, it will be nice if they come in and make a giant difference. I just think it is difficult to bank on, and that's why I appreciate your point about Austin Corbett. Is all this stuff looks great on paper, but Mike Tyson says everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Wow. That's right, man.
And so I don't know. What was his first point, though?
But I think you just made a really good point about the trading, though, the trading back thing. It's entirely dependent on the value that you're getting back. If you're getting 2 top 100 picks, potentially, and maybe like one is a top 50 and one is a top 90 pick, and you can trade back from 39 to 46 and you pick up an additional third round pick.
Is that really a big deal?
I would probably do that, especially it's dependent on how many slots back you're going and who is on the board. Yeah. If they look at their big board, right, and we're at 33, and let's say the Zach Fraser's there, and these are just purely hypotheticals, but these are guys that I have ranked highly. So Zach Fraser is there. You got a Xavier Worthy, a Keon Coleman, maybe an Adisa Isaac and Darius Robinson, right? Those are all positions that we have needs for, but it's 5 players. If someone offers you to move back 4 slots and they'll give you an additional third round pick to do that, you can still have one of your premier 5 players that you have ranked very highly, grab them still, best player available that's on that board, then you still have pick 39, and then you have 2 in the third now. That makes a ton of sense. Where I don't subscribe to trading back is if you're talking about going from like 33 to 56 and all you get back is pick 125 with it, right? No, thank you.
Yeah, but who would do that? I think if you're trading into the 30s, that's a premier spot, right?
Especially
it's like
33.
It's straight up where people, even 39, but you're right. 33 is like we turned on the television for day 2 of the draft.
Correct.
And everybody is watching. No one's tuned out. If you're in the 40s or the 50s, we are going to get something to eat. We're going to make a sandwich at this point, and so are they. But we need, in this draft, I am not getting overwhelmed. I am not going to just be like, oh, wide receiver. I am not an immediacy guy. I'm thinking this. I would not be surprised. And I hate the draft, Ricky. I hate it.
Oh no! See, I'm a draft guy, man. That's
don't worry. You know why? Because how long you been podcasting?
Oh, I've only been podcasting for a year and a half now.
Yep, catch me in 6 years, bro. Because you're gonna do all of this damn work and then none of it, and then you're gonna. Anyway, so my point is just this: I wouldn't be surprised if and I don't have an inside tip. I don't know anything about it.
Sure.
Wouldn't be surprised if Dan Morgan picks a linebacker in the 30s. Right. Would not be surprised. And everybody, as soon as I said that with no knowledge, people were like, oh, did you hear about this kid from NC State that was training with Luke? I was like, oh, it sounds perfect.
Right.
The center position. These are those non-sexy positions, though, that guys actually can make a difference pretty early.
Sure.
You could still get I've seen centers go in like the 3rd round that turn out to be freaking great players, but because they don't have the sex appeal of that. So moving back in that case, particularly when you have those 2 picks there, if you could get 2 picks, like you're saying, in the top 90, I mean, I can see this. If a team wants to move from 48 to 33, you're giving me their 48 and a 64.
Yep. Right.
And that's what it's going to take, bro.
I'll tell you an interesting thing. You talk about the center position, right? I tweeted something out back in March or early March. So I'd say back in March. We're still in it, but middle of the month. Out of the 11 centers that have been drafted in the top 40 since 2006, 10 of them have made all pros or Pro Bowls. 10 out of 11. That is a
40
in the top 40 of the NFL draft. And so there's only been 11 drafted in the top 40 since 2006, right? That's 18 years. But what that means is if there is a prospect that is worth that pick at that position, there is a high success rate. There's a high success rate, and don't be scared of it, because you know what great teams do? And people try to say to me, they try to counter my statement by saying, yeah, those are all playoff teams, though. They just needed to solidify a position.
No.
What are you talking about? That's why they're
the most important, difficult, obvious, like, you know, look at all this.
That's why they maintain and stay playoff teams, because they shore up positions that matter, not positions that people want. They play football and they build better players in better positions. They improve their team, no matter what it is. They improve their team. What we should be doing, if what Dan Morgan is saying is that we're building, make every position better. Just make everything better. And if you could do that by getting Zach Frazier, I'm going to tell you right now, man, and I don't think this is like stepping out on a limb. Zach Frazier is a better center right now than Austin Corbett. Austin Corbett has never played center in a meaningful NFL game. Zach Frazier has played center his entire life. He's a wrestler. Like, this is what he does. He broke his leg in the last game of a West Virginia game, and he crawled off so that they didn't have to use a timeout.
I'm worried about the Austin Corbett thing.
Me too.
And not just not only because of the center transition, like you I mean, I think that's part of it, right, for me. Yeah. But it comes back. I told everybody, and CK has got me. I hate to be a receipt guy. Right. I'm just not a guy that will go back and look at what you said, what I said. It just drives me nuts. But there was a strong contingent of fans in the chat that were telling me how great this Panthers offensive line was going into 2023. And I said this, folks. I said a couple of things. I said, number one, 2024 is not 2023. Mm-hmm. I've watched football long enough to know that what happened last year, we ain't in fantasy football. You want to look at fantasy football and just look at what everybody did last year? That's what fantasy football rankings do. Pick the top stats and then just translate it this year. First, it changes. Second, no plan goes as you wanted it. Third, we had 2 very important players coming off of major injuries late in the season. Yep. And this was the problem I had with any optimism going into last season, Ricky, was that on paper, it's like a superficial good. Mm-hmm. We put lipstick on like everything would have had to have worked perfectly. A rookie quarterback would have had to ball out of offense. You know what I mean? Like all of these things had to work. Like it was like a cosmic alignment of stars that needed to happen. Sure. And so I just think this is that I would be wary. And I'm glad you said that, of just like, hey, because it looks on paper like, hey, looks like it fits. So let's just put it there. Yeah. But maybe that actually is some insight, though, into drafting a center, though, right? Maybe. It's like you're like, hey, this is what I think we're going to do. Yep. But we're not drafting a center also and saying he's only going to be the guy.
You're also not insinuating to other teams what you're doing. You're not tipping your hat at all with
unless
what
they're watching us right now.
Yeah, and you know what? And I apologize very much for giving away all the goods as such an informed insider for the Carolina Panthers organization. Yeah, very sorry. I just spilled the beans.
They actually should be watching us.
They should.
I
agree.
This type of content, actually, because we're going to pull every string out of everything and try to figure 100%. It out. The stat you said was 10 out of 11.
There's been 11. There's been 11 prospects that have been drafted as centers now, and actually played center. Right, there were guys drafted that played center in college, never played a snap at center in the NFL. They played guard. Okay. Drafted as centers and played center. 10 out of the 11 that have been drafted in the top 40 since 2006 have made All Pros or Pro Bowls.
Can I give you homework for Twitter and then you message me because I won't go? I have a theory that tight end is the complete opposite of this. And my novice, non-expert football fan is do not draft a tight end in the top 15. Do not even fucking really mess with them in the top with that first round. I've seen OJ Howard. I've bought into all of these guys from every.
So what is your threshold? Did you say top 50 or did you say top
15?
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. I think
15. Where have those guys turned out at tight end?
And there's a monetary part of that as well, though, because when you draft so high, you're paying them a guaranteed, like if you pay in the top 10, you're paying them like $9 to $10 million a year for a rookie tight end, whereas that is almost the fourth most average,
so it's silly to do
a year. It's silly to do it in a way, unless you are sure that it's a unicorn type of deal. Now, Brock Bowers, I think, fits that mold a little bit more than
every year
tight ends that we would talk about. Kyle Pitts was a very huge projection, gigantic athleticism, right? Terrific player.
He's a wide receiver.
But yeah, he was kind of that tweener, and tight end just made sense. But in the NFL, man, if you can't block really well, it does change your trajectory. There's a guy this year, though, that I am extremely high on that I think is a second or third round pick.
From OJ Howard to people be like, what about Greg Olsen? I'd be like, man, they had to trade him. They had to trade him.
Greg wasn't a top 15 pick. You know what I mean? Like
12. I think he went 12th.
Was he?
He was high. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Let's take another call. You look like you're Googling it as you say it. Let's go to Anthony in Charlotte.
What's up, C3? It's Anthony from Charlotte. Hope y'all boys are having a good Tuesday. Just thought I'd call in. Nothing happening right now. It's kind of the dead period between the end of free agency and the draft. I'll first say it doesn't look like we're going to make any big moves, really. I mean, I know there's a lot of guys out there that could replenish like positions for picks, but I don't think Dan doesn't want to trade those picks. So I like the way there is a lot of stuff that came out about him and Dave Canales talking. They're saying all the right stuff. And I'm not going to crown anyone. I mean, we've been doing that for years now, and it just bites us in the ass later on down the line. But what I will say is that they definitely seem more confident than any two tandem that's been in this building in the past 5 to 6 years. So I'll give them credit for that. Dave Canales, I mean, he says that he's spending like eating dinners with Bryce Young and trying to build, an emotional connection with him or this and that, just trying to get in his mental space. I think that's all great stuff. I know we all have our conflicting opinions about Bryce Young, but one thing's for sure. When you get hired at a job and your boss is 50-50 on whether they should have hired you or not, you're doomed to fail from the start because they don't think highly of you to begin with. And that leads to controversy, that leads to butting heads, and just always having someone looking over your back knowing that you got to give complete extra effort to that person for them to even earn back your trust. And I think Frank Reich didn't trust Bryce Young from the beginning. If we get someone in here that can, I think we'll see some great results this year. I'm not going to make any crazy hot takes about what I think about certain players in the draft or anything like that because I'm always wrong about it. But I will say this: I stand by my quarterback still. And
we don't have a choice.
The one thing I will say is, and I like the way Canales worded it. He said he kind of understands that this team is rebuilding, and he's like, I think we can be sneakily good. Basically, like if we just do the right things, we can be in every game, and that's all we want to see. We just want to see the team be competitive, and win or lose, at least give the other team a good fight. So I don't think we're going to win that many games this year. But I do think that we'll be way more competitive in past
Thank you,
seasons.
Anthony. Great call. We're going to take one more or two, and then we'll get got G. Cavassier here.
Podcast brothers, how y'all doing? It's G. Cavassier. Hey, man.
I was on the internet maybe like 10 minutes ago, and I was seeing something about the Panthers trying to get Stefon Gilmore to come back to
Palmetto wanted
Carolina.
us to talk about this briefly.
I am with that shit. I know he's a little bit older. He could be like a little bit slower, but that motherfucker is a damn good corner. I didn't want him to leave in the first fucking place, man. And if there's a way we can get Stefon Gilmore to come back to Carolina, what about Hassan Reddick? I've been saying that for a minute. I would love Hassan to come back to Carolina. Oh, my God, man. Ooh, that would be some shit, man. But see, I don't know how that's going to work out in the linebacker room because, you know, we picked up that defensive end from Minnesota, but he's going to play linebacker. And we picked up the dude from Denver, and we got motherfucking damn Shaq or whatever, you know. And I really don't know how many linebackers you need in the 3-4. I mean, I do not know. Somebody help me or whatever, but hey, if there's a way we can get Hassan Reddick,
well, you need
fucking Stefon Gilmore.
Said it, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, but one of them's a corner after the time, the other one's a defensive end.
People saying, what would the Panthers accept for a trade for Derrick Brown? They talking about 2 first rounds, 3 first rounds, and a second. We're not going to get rid of damn.
And
Derrick
nobody's
Brown.
really giving
We're
that
not.
up.
They need to hurry up and fucking.
Perfect call. Thank you, G, and Anthony for the calls, and great segue to someone in the chat. It was, and I'm sorry, I lost my producer, Cody Lack, who was so good with these comments, and I'm not. CK, you are free to start clicking if you want to. Palmetto Money wanted to ask us as well what our thoughts were with Stefon Gilmore and Clowney. And I wanted to ask, I'll ask Ricky this because I asked CK this earlier. Which position group do you feel needs more help now? The cornerback room or
you missed this? Cody already asked him.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was exactly my answer too. It was like almost identical.
End?
Yeah, the defensive end.
Okay. All right. Well, we won't even thank you for filling me in while I went and took a leak. Hassan Reddick. How does he fit in this defense? Actually, that would be my question. Is because he did right, and when he says, "I don't even know how many linebackers," and at first it sounds, like, well, there's 4, right. But he's actually right. Because I don't consider Brian Burns a linebacker. Right. I'm sorry, like I still call him a defensive end. And whatever it may be. So you have ends kind of playing in those roles. You have some corners, safeties, I guess, that might be playing like kind of chin, which we don't know why he doesn't fit into a 3-4 in that case. But Hassan Reddick, I loved him. I loved him here. I like him more than I would have rather kept if I had an either or and Brian Burns or him. It's Reddick. I said it then, but I also understood the contract, the draft. You had years on, there's all these other factors, not just one or the other. Does Hassan Reddick fit what this Panthers defense could benefit from right now? Or is he too light in the pants for a defense that's a little light in the pants?
I think that he clearly benefits the defense because of his skill set as a pass rusher. Yeah. The question is going to be, how much emphasis does Ejiro Evero put on that particular skill set if it kind of sacrifices a little bit of run defense? Now, that's not to say that Hassan Reddick isn't good in run support, because he is, especially for his size, but he's not the classic mold of what Evero appears to value the most out of his edge defenders. It's one of the things that was talked about so much when they traded up for DJ Johnson. Everyone was like, confused about why they would trade up for a guy like this, and it came out a couple days later how much Evero emphasizes setting that edge and maintaining it as part of what he does on his defense. If you go back to his defense in Denver, he didn't have crazy pressure generating numbers, crazy sack productions. He didn't have any of that. Evero makes his hay with his coverage concepts on the back end of the defense. True. That is what he does. That's what he did in LA. That's what he did in Denver as defensive coordinator. And it's what he's done so far here. Now, part of that, though, has to be this symbiotic relationship. And you have to have something to keep a defense honest, because why we looked so good in the secondary last year, or an offense honest, why we looked so good in the secondary last year they just ran the ball down our throats.
Oh my
you know
God,
what I mean?
He's one of us, CK. He's one of us.
Yes.
I think though that Hassan Reddick, to answer the original question, I'm sorry that I went on a tangent. I am a long-winded person.
No, you're not.
To answer the original question, I think Hassan Reddick absolutely fits this defense because I think that Hassan Reddick is one of those players that fits any defense because of what he brings to your team.
Yeah.
He is a bona fide pass rusher. We do not have that. It would benefit DJ Wanham tremendously, and this is something that CK and I were talking about with that original question about the edge or cornerback room. It benefits DJ Wanham tremendously to have a guy that will set him up for him to knock it down because DJ Wanham is not the one who is out there, getting a triple to get somebody home. He is the guy that just kind of figures out how to make that sacrifice fly happen to bring in a run. That's what he does. We need a guy that can actually set it up and win one-on-one, though, and manufacture base runners.
CK, we're going to give him 2 minutes and 50 seconds to think about it as I play the next call. But he brought it up.
Oh, no. What did I do?
No, it's where first, you're speaking to people that already love your point. The defense, bro. We need a third person right now to settle it for us. Because not settle. I feel like CK and I just agreed on this entirely.
Yeah.
When it comes to, we want you to think, and CK, I want you to tell them because I feel like I'm always doing tell them what we have been arguing with people about. I have watched great defenses. I have watched very good defenses. And I watched the Panthers last year, and I didn't see any of that. CK, tell them what we've debated about, not you and I, with a lot of people, and then I'm going to play the call, and then we want to get Ricky's, because I think he's one of us.
Yeah. So the position that we've held, and I've held pretty much all year, even last year, and even the year before, is we tend to inflate what this defense does, and we focus on stats, to make it seem as though there was a positive to this unit. And you kind of hit the nail on the head with one of the points that we had, and that was, when they're only running the ball, it makes our yardage look inflated. We call this defense fool's gold. A lot of people think this is a top 5 defense. In what metric, and one of the things that I loved stating, and I put this on Twitter as well, and it was, do you believe that teams like the Baltimore Ravens, the San Francisco 49ers, any of those other teams that are considered elite defenses are like, you know what? We need to do whatever Carolina's doing on their defense. Not a single one is going to be saying that. And to the same point, Brian Burns didn't have the ability to rush the passer because we weren't passed on very much, right?
And they clipped off 4 yards every first down on us, dude.
Right. The run defense was abysmal. It was absolutely abysmal.
So was the red zone defense.
So the point that I think Tony is probably trying to make is what do you believe the rhetoric that people have, like even with regard to Sheena Quick, who was quick to, kind of put her opinion that the Brian Burns trade was us getting fleeced, and then going on national television on Pat McAfee's show and saying that we got fleeced, so everybody else in the entire country thinks that with no evidence to prove it, just by stating that we were a top 5 defense. Do you personally subscribe to that rhetoric, or do you also look at this as a logical human being?
And don't answer it right away. We want you to think about it. We're going to take one more call. And my question is, was it even a top 10 defense? You want to do top 5, CK, like everybody has been throwing? No, that's what they threw at us. We'll start with that. But my caveat is top 10. Let's take another call. We'll get Ricky's position. And Ricky, you can also tell us whenever you got to leave in the private chat.
Sure thing.
What's good, C3? This is Deez, and I'm trying to get in my cat call. We had a lot of news drop from Dan Morgan yesterday, and then Dave Canales today. Finally getting a chance to hear these guys speak about this Carolina Panthers team. At this point, it's really hard to draw conclusions about what this team is and what the new GM and the new head coach is. I can tell you what they're not. I can tell you right now, Dan Morgan's not like Scott Fitterer. Scott Fitterer was a lot better at the public speaking. But he did also make some mistakes. Remember last year, Scott Fitter got up and he talked about how we needed a guard in the draft. And what did the Atlanta Falcons do? Took the guard that we wanted right before our pick. Dan Morgan didn't do those things when he spoke yesterday. He kept his cards pretty close to his vest. But what he did say, I am excited about, he said he wanted to build through the draft. And when a GM says that, he has to feel comfortable that he's got the time to make some mistakes and maybe not have the best season and get multiple years with the draft picks. Because that's what that means. That's a rebuild. It takes time to do this. You can't do it all in 1 year. You're not going to fill those holes on defense. Not all those starters are going to be serviceable, as we like to call them. We're not going to have all the depth filled out on the roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You're going to have some weapons that we still need to acquire on the offensive side of the ball. So Dan Morgan's kind of laid out his vision without having to say a whole lot. We can infer a lot of these things on what he wants to do and what direction he wants to go. But I do feel good. Even though he's not the best public speaker, he may not be the best at conveying his ideas to fans as maybe Scott Fitterer was. But I feel like it's a much better direction so far, especially in the free agency side. And then Dave Canales. We got to hear Dave Canales speak today. And he talked about the things he wanted to do immediately to help Bryce Young and to start to fix the things that he saw in the tape that weren't right with Bryce Young. And how he wants to give the football, the handoff. He wants to hand off the ball to the running back that runs angry, the running back that runs hard. He's not going to put somebody on the field because they get paid a lot of money. He's not going to put somebody on the field because they had the merit or they had the tenure. And that's exactly what we need. He talked about competition. That's exactly what we need. We need guys competing against one another. I want to say shout out to G Baby. He's been saying build through the draft, just like Dan Morgan did. And shout out Panther Pickle. He's been saying the same thing about competition on both sides of the ball, pointing out how Steve Smith had said this earlier this year. Anyway, C3, hope you guys have a fantastic show. I look forward to watching it, and keep pounding, C3.
Keep pounding.
He's the best. The brand ambassador right there. Thank you. I was watching Dan Morgan. And I mean, we have coach speak, we have GM speak, we have all these different things. Sometimes it's just speak though, because if it's just right, my thing that I wanted to say, or if I was Dan Morgan, I would have said, guys, was how else do you build a team but through the draft? Right? Is only good teams get the luxury of adding a piece through free agency that changes the dynamic of their trajectory. You know, like what the fuck else way does a 2-15 team build for the future? To me, it seems, and that's where I've gotten a little, maybe I'm just older now. I'm 42. I'm getting older, and the Twitter hate and the angst, the arguments is like, I'm actually excited when we don't do shit. I'm like, oh, thank God we didn't pay this. You know, like, I don't know what else the answer is for a 2-15 team. What team has gone 2-15? Would it be the Bengals, maybe, when the Burrow?
Oh, after he got hurt.
And then they came in, and then he got hurt, and then all this, it's unrealistic, isn't it, to think that there's another way for a team to get better across the board with so many holes? Free agency is not the place.
Yeah. Well, isn't it also, though, why does it have to even be just a 2-15 team that can't build through the draft, right? If you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, this is the argument that I always make when people say that you got to build strictly through free agency. I think it's got to be this perfect mesh blend, right? You take the pieces that make the most sense for you and where you value having veteran presence, and you pay that money and you allocate it to those positions. I have no problem with that, right? And age factors into that, positional value factors into all that. Makes sense. But you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Who are some of their best players on their team outside of Travis Kelce, right? Because Travis Kelce, he's a generational tight end. But they have a lot of young players that make an impact for them. Trent McDuffie was a guy that when they drafted him out of Washington, the cornerback, a lot of people were like, that's a weird pick. But it wasn't, because they needed a difference maker outside in the secondary. They got him. They drafted George Karlaftis out of Purdue, right? The edge player. A lot of people say that's kind of like a weird pick too. Like it didn't seem like a glaring need for them, but he's turned into a very solid role player for them, who also is going to have an onus as their number one edge rusher with Chris Jones. There's just a way that they go about drafting people that if you look at their free agent acquisitions, MVS, right? What has he done for them? Not that much. And that's the risk that you take when you're signing a free agent. You're paying them a whole lot more money than you could draft a player that has that.
They didn't pay him a whole lot. You know what I'm saying? They didn't pay him
like, didn't they pay him like 9 or 10 million a year?
Which is really nothing. We paid like freaking, who's the guy I hate now that I love, CK, on this team last year? I thought he was going to be great. That wide receiver. I already forgot his name. Yeah, I already forgot Chark's name. I mean, yeah, it's like more money than the veteran minimum. You know what I'm saying? But it's not really when it comes to a wide receiver.
For a vertical field stretcher, though, that you could probably draft.
Who couldn't catch in Green Bay, couldn't catch in Kansas City, but he made some good plays, I guess, towards the end when it mattered.
Look, man, he makes about 3 or 4 wow plays a season. And he doesn't play all the games because he's usually hurt. So a lot of times those 3 or 4 wow plays end up being in the postseason. And I feel like that's played a big part on him continuing on getting these contracts, you know?
Ricky, there was a time where Dave Gettleman was not a joke to the NFL.
Sure.
Right? He comes into Carolina. He has a great, he's so good behind the mic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we could he is so charismatic.
Yeah.
He has all the good Yiddish statements and names and this and that. The problem with Dave Gettleman is that there's 2 problems with Dave Gettleman. Is one, that he bought into his own ego.
Sure.
Right. Where he and then he thought he was the most important thing. And the second is that and this is how many of us do what I say, not as I do. That he didn't listen to his own advice. He said this: you use free agency to set up the draft. And that's exactly what you should do. You use free agency to let you go into the NFL draft without having the needs overwhelm your perspective. And he didn't do it.
No, you're right. And I think that what you're saying the Panthers do is exactly that philosophy right now. They've created flexibility. Even with the trade of Brian Burns, what they did by getting 39 is they opened up 33 by having 39.
Yeah.
When you have a pick 6 picks later, you're not pressed to say, hey, look, I've got pick 33 and then I've got 65. There's 28 picks between my next pick. I have to pick the best player. I can't miss on this. At 33 now, you take best player available. And now I follow the weighted best player available strategy, where you still look at
you're
the
not
board
taking
overall.
a quarterback if you have a quarterback, right?
If Michael Penix Jr. is there and you really, really like him, you're not going to take him when you're in your second year of a rookie contract with Bryce Young. It's just not a smart way to go about things, right?
It's never pure.
It's never pure best player available, right? But I think what you do here is you allow center, edge, corner, tight end, wide receiver, linebacker, any of the positions that you could look at and say, we definitely have a need. I think there's a possibility that one of these big tackles, this is a great tackle class. If one of these premier tackles falls, I mean, Taylor Moton's not getting any younger. Ike Mekwonu has a ton of questions. Why would you not bring in somebody that could potentially be a stalwart on the outside of this offensive line when you're allocating all these things to the inside of the offensive line? But it opens that possibility up, and then still can hit a need pick at 39. If you really got to make sure that you get something that you need desperately, a wide receiver, a center, or an edge, get him at 39.
Yeah.
You've made that flexibility.
I just feel like need and the draft, those 2 things don't go well.
So did you want my take on the Brian Burns thing, though? I feel like you forgot about that.
Yeah, tell me.
Did you forget? I didn't know if you actually
did. No, I totally forgot about it. I'm trying now to do the comments. Usually I get to just roll on this podcast and be me. It's Cody's here doing the comments. Now I'm trying to do calls. Yeah.
I brought it up because I didn't want to forget myself. Like, I'm sitting here answering these other questions. And I'm like trying to keep my answer in my head.
I want to hear about it.
So I do agree very much so with the defensive statistics and ranking being a facade. I don't think that we were a top 7 overall defense in the NFL.
Not Brian Burns, about the defense.
Well, the defense, but the Brian Burns part plays into that. Where I would say about the Brian Burns, because we talked about Sheena Quick and what she said on the Pat McAfee show. I agree with the sentiment of being fleeced, but I think that my explanation is going to be a little bit different than a just regular we got fleeced because of the return value that we got this time. A lot of it is hindsight when you look at the things that could have been done, but the only reason that we were only able to get a 2 and a 5 and or 2, a 4 and a future 5, is that right? A 2, a 5 and a
it
future
was
5.
A 2, a 5 and a future
5. Yeah. The only reason that we were having to take that as the answer was because there was no contractual leverage left on our end.
Right.
They were going to have to pay him. We literally could have gotten anything different. We could have gotten more for Brian Burns, the player that he is. Any point before when we traded him, to be completely honest. If you had traded him in training camp of last year when he had a year left on his rookie contract and you were getting him for that amount of money where you don't have to sign him, for $150 million right off the bat. No team is going to give you premium draft picks plus allocate all of their salary cap money like that. Like that's
so
just
we
not
didn't get fleeced. You actually got a lot for the moment, but then keep going.
The relative value of what a $150 million player is, though, is where that doesn't equal a 2, a 5, and a future 5. That just doesn't equal. If you were to look,
they overpaid him.
But did they? Because
you just said it with a straight face, and I'm interrupting you here. You said it with a straight. You have not even smiled. You haven't budged.
I haven't. No.
The type of player he is.
Yeah.
That to me stinks and reeks of Panther optimism of what he can be. And I'm not saying he's a bad player. Please, people will take that as being like, oh, you're shit. No.
Sure.
To me, that statement alone, Ricky, has a presupposed success in the future.
Sure.
And when we look at him, he's had 1 year above 10 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
He has been a good player for us. But, dude, like, when you say that, the player he is,
yeah,
what do you then mean? Because I don't see the 150. I don't see it.
What I mean by that is since he's come in the league, right? Even as a rookie production, since he's come in the league, I think he has in the top 7 most sacks since coming in the league.
He's already all right. So he's been in the league 5 years. Yep. If he's got the most in
no, he's not even close to the top 7.
He can't be.
Yeah, he's like if you look at his rank,
what out of rookies maybe like
no. I just mean coming in, like his cumulative total in the 5 years that he's been playing.
I feel like I can name 10 people that have had more sacks than him regularly.
I mean, Hassan Reddick, one.
Joey Bosa. Miles Garrett.
Not Joey because he's been hurt. Nick.
Mm-hmm. Or Nick Bosa. I mean, that's what I meant.
Both the Watt kid. All right. So say that stat. We'll look up a little bit more. Keep going, Ricky.
Yeah. But so my point on that though is it's kind of like when you do these prospect evaluations, right? You don't just look at what somebody did in one season.
Sure.
You want to see the cumulative body of work that somebody has provided. And then you look at the context behind that. You look at the athletic testing behind that, right? There is a whole process that goes into grading and evaluating a player. That same process happens for NFL players, in my opinion. And so when you're looking at giving out a giant contract for somebody at a premier position, I think that what you do with all that is you look at it and you look at who else is available. You look at who will be coming in. You look at what draft positions you might have, and you determine that person is worth that. I don't care what any of our individual opinions is, to be completely honest, right?
Sure,
like even mine, it doesn't mean anything. What matters to me is that an NFL franchise, and not just the Carolina Panthers, because I was told over and over that no NFL franchise would ever give somebody $150 million with the statistical production that Brian Burns had, right? And that it would just be something where we would be paying a Panthers tax. And that the only team that might do it would be somebody who is contending for a Super Bowl, somebody that was one piece away. The New York Giants are not that. The New York Giants looked at him, and for whatever reason, man, maybe they're incompetent. I'm not going to sit here and praise them either. Maybe they did the wrong thing. One way or another, though, an NFL franchise outside of the Panthers deemed him to be just as worthy as he deemed himself to be. And the LA Rams, with their offer 2 years ago, are what set his market for what his value is and what he was worth.
All totally fair points. And I
all of those
agree
things
with
are where we should have traded him somewhere in there if we weren't going to sign him. I understand we wanted to work out the deal, so they also didn't want to give him up. At some point, though, you got to have the forethought to say this isn't going well, and it's only going to get worse if we can't.
That's where they fucked it up, Ricky, is that they didn't do what they should have done then if they weren't going to. That was like shit or get off the pot type of stuff. I agree with you. This is, and please, I hope I don't want you to misconstrue what I'm saying as disagreement entirely. Is first, I think any player should be wanting to get the most money that they can. 100%. Like, I don't feel sorry for any corporate entity or any of these guys, so don't worry about that. I'm rooting for Brian Burns to get the most money he possibly can as a player on an individual level.
Yep.
I am rooting for the Carolina Panthers overall.
Absolutely.
So I do think there are teams that have flexibility and money and timing and things that can pay that. So that's where I would is so anybody who says on the internet, well, oh, nobody else is going to pay him. I don't entirely agree with that because we just saw it happen. We saw the $150 million. To me, though, I don't think it would have been wise for the Carolina Panthers to do financially now. I think the crux of your argument continues to go back to that they could have handled it better earlier by getting rid of him more so than even paying him then is like, I feel like some of that. And the other thing I'm tired of hearing, though, is he's just young. He's just young, and there's so much future potential. And that's great. I mean, you don't want to pay that for an unproven old player. And again, he hasn't done anything wrong to me. So I don't want this to come off in a bad way.
Well,
I would just try to put ourselves in the position of another team as a fan,
right,
who didn't know or didn't have any investment. And you're trying to tell me you traded even more than this and then paid this guy for $150 million and he had 8 sacks.
Totally.
He only had 10 sacks 1 year.
One time. Yep. The 12.5.
And so it's not that I'm upset with these players making max money. I just feel like there's a little homerism always in saying Brian Burns is in the top of the top.
That's fair.
So he's number 13 since he's come into the league in total sacks.
Okay.
He had 40,
not terrible.
He had
no, I was wrong though. 13 sounds right.
He had 46. And I want to say that, I want to point out he had 46 sacks. He got paid. What would you say he got paid as far as a defensive end or linebacker? What would you say?
Like rank wise?
Rank wise, yeah.
Right now, I would say that he has the top 3 contract, top 4 contract.
So TJ Watt has 76.5 sacks, which is 30 more than Burns does.
Mm-hmm.
30
time, and 6 interceptions, by the way, 20 forced fumbles as well. Okay. Myles Garrett has 68, which is 20 more than Brian Burns, over 20 more. His forced fumbles are 13. He has no interceptions. Brian Burns has 46 sacks. He has 8 forced fumbles, which I think personally, if I'm looking at it from the speed rusher like Brian Burns is, I think that is more important than your sack number.
Get the ball.
Like
forced fumbles,
is the forced fumbles, because that is where you're trying to get there right when he's throwing the ball, reaching up. Again, last year, it's hard to be able to justify, using last year against him because of the lack of opportunity for rushing. So I don't even do that. The thing that I like, the argument that I've always had is because I don't like the idea. Number one, I didn't like that Sheena did that. Again, she can do what she wants. I also can have my opinion about what she did. And so my opinion is Dan Morgan is coming in here to a dumpster fire. He's already trying to rebuild this team, and you go on national television and basically shit talk what he did, right? Like there was no better options. Like that was it. People can be mad about it all they want. You can be mad that Brian Burns only got traded for a 2nd round pick. There was nobody offering a better deal.
And I think that's fair. So I think that those are 2 things that are different and true, right? I think that the fact that there was nothing better on the table and that Dan Morgan did every single thing that he could to make this situation A, disappear, but B, benefit the team instead of Brian just walking away for absolutely nothing. I think he did what he had to do in that situation. I don't fault Dan Morgan so much for any of this, to be completely honest. But what I'm talking about with the fleecing isn't that this deal today, right here, was a fleece because of the context around it. It's a fleece when it comes to not, and I hate the hypothetical because I agree with what you guys are saying too, though. You can't always look back at like what could have been. That's a lot of hindsight and a lot of retrospect when they were working actively to still try to keep this guy on the team. So I don't think that's a totally fair argument either, right? But what it does mean though is that there is no way that you could say that a player that is getting that kind of contract is necessarily only worth that. All of the situation together, the context all put in together is why it in my mind, I don't think she's wrong for using the word fleeced, because Dan Morgan didn't get fleeced. The Panthers organization got fleeced for the 3 years of issues that they've had trying to solve this dilemma and this problem.
It's a bungle. But I
don't think, and I don't want to speak for Sheena. I would never do that because again, she's fully capable of doing that herself.
Sure.
But I would imagine that what she was implying with that wasn't that it was on Dan Morgan, even though that's a perception that can definitely come from that statement. And sure. CK, I think that's what you're alluding to too, is that that's just such a shitty thing to lay at Dan Morgan's feet. I don't know necessarily that I view what she said as that being laid at Dan Morgan's feet. I think that she's laying that on the Carolina Panthers organization. Right. And Dan Morgan, for as much as you want to say, hey man, he's in charge now, he wasn't in charge then, that's a totally 100% factual statement. But he was in a high-ranking position during some of those conversations. Sure. So I think that kind of hearkening back to some of that stuff in the past is a fair thing to add in, not necessarily use as gospel, though.
I don't disagree with that at all either. The counter I would have to the point that Brian Burns got paid $150 million is there's a lot of teams that don't get anything for the people coming out of a contract that are free agents, that don't franchise tag their guy, that don't win. The teams get nothing in return, right? And so that's why I'm saying, like, this at the fact we were able to get a second round pick.
Sure, I mean, we could have let him walk,
right? And the thing is the people feel like it's a fleece because of that, the 2 first-round draft picks that the Rams offered.
Yeah, everything that comes back to this,
it always comes back to that. And here's the problem with that: the Rams were desperate, number one. And
more time on the contract,
he had a year and a half left on his rookie contract.
Correct.
They were in the middle of a season when they were trying to make a push to push their team over the top.
Correct.
So whereas this year, the problem you run into is Brian Burns was not going to play on the tag. I don't think after what happened last year, where he decided to play on his 5th-year option, everybody else decided to sit out. They got the money they needed, and he was basically sitting there. Luckily, he got paid this year. But there's a real chance that he wasn't going to get paid that type of money if the Giants weren't going to come back, calling for it. And so he wasn't going to play on the tag. We were going to have to wait until midway through the year to even have an attempt to try to trade him for anything more than what we got. And that's assuming that there's somebody willing to do that. I don't know that there is. The reason I just don't agree with the mindset of like being fleeced is we were fleeced. Here, I won't even say we're fleeced. We just made a poor
we
decision.
fleeced the Giants.
I think so too. I think that this was like, when you look at what the price that they paid, and when you really look at the rankings of where Brian Burns falls in the rankings of the past 2 or 3 years, it's kind of scary that they got paid as much as he did.
If he puts up 14, 15 sacks, 13 sacks,
they're not going to work.
Yeah, but if that happens, right, then like at what point, and that's the way that all this gets worked out anyways, right? These conversations are a lot of fun, and or maybe fun's not even the right word for a lot of people. For me, I don't mind this kind of conversation, the back and forth, because I understand the difference of opinion and perspectives. And I think it's part of what being a fan is, though.
Yeah.
Like, you're not supposed to always have to agree with every single move a franchise makes or that a player makes. Like, holy shit, man, we're not them. We're not in their positions. It's not our money. So, like, I understand every single argument on both sides, to be completely honest, man. I can find a way to tie myself to all of them. I try to look at it simply from as objective as a way as I possibly can. And if Brian Burns, who had that 12.5 sack season, right, and then walked into the dumpster fire the next 2 years where they get rid of Hassan Reddick, don't add anything of value next to him. Then they bring in DJ Johnson as a trade pick, get nothing out of that. The Frank Reich thing is just an absolute disaster. Everything goes wrong. He's still trying to do the best that he can, and he still puts up 8 sacks. Now, when I say best,
He
I
had
can.
two in
Tony,
game one, though.
When I say that, though, I also mean like I'm talking about coming into training camp and trying to do the right thing for a team where he thinks it's
also
bigger than that.
Can I point out something real quick? His 12.5 sack season came the year after Hassan Reddick left.
Yeah, it was actually the year after, which is I thought that. I agree with all of those things, Ricky, but what to me, the word fleeced, I think, is the problem.
Sure,
because
and that's fine.
fleeced means the deal that we got right now. And everything that we're talking about is contextualized with past events.
Sure.
And so I think it's like the idea that you got that much for like, I feel like teams could have hardballed us even more and been like, fuck it. You ain't paying this motherfucker.
In a vacuum, you've got a guy who is very unhappy, has no interest in playing, has already said that he didn't necessarily do every single thing in his power to play last year, still put down underwhelming numbers for what you thought he was because of his ascension the year prior, right? So like all of those things in a vacuum, I would agree with you. A second round pick is a nice recoup for a player like that instead of paying $150 million. That's where I will 100% agree with you. I just don't necessarily operate in the way of I can remove the context and the history because that's also extremely important to how we got to the present. You know what I'm saying?
I think the difference is like when we're this is where I'm again, I know we're just going back and forth, but I think this is an important part of this.
We got more calls. He's got to go.
The mindset of fleece, though, is the part of that I'm like, it's not a fleece. We made a bad decision, but the Giants didn't fleece us. We didn't get fleeced. We made a poor decision a year and a half ago.
Or two. We made two poor decisions is kind of what people would say. It's not just the Rams. It's just the continued problems.
I know way too many Giants fans personally in my day-to-day life that feel like they were fleeced.
They weren't happy with the trade.
They weren't happy with the trade.
I'm actually surprised there's not more negative discussion about it, CK. Sure. And I think a lot of it is nobody really gives a fuck at this point. It's like, oh, we got a name. He's going to sound great beside Thibodeau and this and that. Here, let's take another call before Ricky's got to go. And we've got
what's up,
a lot to do.
Espresso. I'm going to give my thoughts real fast on everything that's going on. The rule change of the head drop tackle is god awful. Like, it's what the fuck? What are we doing here? What happened to the sport I love? You know what I mean? Like I even said, like, it's going to be hard for me to watch football again. Like, to watch the NFL, like, because the whole time I'm just going to be angry. Like, what? That's flag? Like, I can't. I don't know. It fucking sucks. I hate it. I think it's the worst rule ever.
It's very visual, though. It's such an easy PR move.
I'll try, but I mean, good God. It's just, don't tell me it's for player safety. It's not. It's not at all. I see that might be getting Gilmore and Clowney up. That's cool. That's why I've been wanting, but again, like this.
Today's really depressed by this hip drop.
It's football. Like, eventually, I'm just not going to be interested in watching. Like, I'll watch UFL. I'll watch hockey.
No, you will not.
Like, this is
we'll watch hockey. A real man sport.
But, yeah, there's my thought.
All right, so the hip drop tackle, to me, this kind of goes back to, at first, I think this is just a visual thing, is like, you see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so high profile at the moment you see the person do it. But was getting rid of the horse collar a bad thing?
No.
I don't know how you get rid of the hip drop. It seems like momentum requires you, if you can only tackle people in this strike zone and the hips are part of it, and you're running full speed. That's the only problem I have with getting rid of this rule, Ricky and CK, is that, like, how do you actually
accomplish it?
Yeah, to me, it's like momentum and all of this is, it looks terrible. A horse collar, that's different.
If I remember 100% correctly in the interpretation of the rule that they're implementing with the hip drop, is that it requires a twist as well. It's not just the simple hip
falling on them
a rotation.
after.
Yeah, rotation of falling on the lower half. Now, I'll revert back because I did not play NFL football, man. I'm going to break some news here. So I cannot speak to actually what it is like to be playing that level of football and having to completely adjust the way that you play defense, the way you've always played defense, because a hip drop tackle is not something that just was created as a dirty tackle that came in. Hip drop tackle is something that has been happening in every level of football. It's just certain plays with bigger names, and Logan Wilson was involved in multiple of them, that all of a sudden people thought he was a dirty player, so they started calling the play a dirty play.
Yeah.
That's not the truth. And Jason McCourty today on Good Morning Football actually spoke to it in the most perfect way that I've heard anyone describe it. And he's saying that we've been doing this. When you're chasing down a guy who is in front of you, who is a large individual, and he is momentum going his way, you are trying to bring him down. If you cannot reach and grab him on his lower body, but you can grab him up top, and you are not allowed to grab inside of his collar anymore because of the horse collar, you grab him with your whole body and try to stop him by dropping your weight. That is what a hip drop tackle is.
It seems to make sense.
Correct. It sucks, but it is a part of the game. What he said is he asked multiple defensive coordinators in the league right now, so how do you do this? How do you teach this? And every single one of them replied to him, I have no idea. I don't know what we're going to do. And it's a 15-yard penalty, an automatic first down. Those are game-changing.
That's the problem. It's the game-changing part.
Game-changing calls, man. And it's all, and there's a lot of subjective. And they also made it a call that is deemed a point of emphasis, which means they are going to call it next season. When they make a rule, a point of emphasis, they are going to call it. So there is going to be a lot of interpreted ways that this is enforced next year, man. And I'm just not a fan.
It's the problem I have with it is it's now going to allow for the concern of the integrity of the game to be called into question a lot more frequently. There's going to be games that are going to be decided off of this. Like 100%, there's going to be a play that in and of itself is the reason that people point to as to why somebody lost a game. I don't like that. I slightly disagree with most people who say they're not going to watch, like even White Chocolate. I think
I'm
that
always gonna watch.
Right. I think people are going to find, if this makes offense score more, I think that everybody's going to find this to be a more entertaining thing. But that's if
I don't love that entirely.
No,
I don't want a game that has no scoring. But to me, only scoring doesn't mean more exciting football.
Right.
Not at
The last point that I want to make about this before we take the next call is that I feel like that, and again, Ricky, I didn't play not even close to this level.
Right.
But I feel like some of these techniques become more important when you eliminate
the
launching, the going after the knee. Like you've made it so then the 5'9", 210 guy has to go try to do this. I can't fucking launch at his head.
Yep.
I can't try to hurt him, and I can't
go below the knees.
Like what else? I got to jump on his back and look like a little baby. To me, I don't know if I remember seeing the hip drop or whatever it's called. I might even be calling it right tackle. But I also remember Muggs not going across the middle in 1999. So,
and there's just so much of it, man. That's like you nailed it by saying that when you start taking away so many other aspects, you're going to have to pivot and find a new way to be effective, right? Because it's still a part of the game. And it's what they're doing with the new rule with the kickoff. The kickoff was a part of the game. They got rid of it entirely, essentially, by doing what they did. Now they're trying to bring it back because they realize that they messed up a part of the game by not having it involved.
Because it was interesting.
It's interesting, man. And it's part of it. It's what makes skilled players valuable. It's what makes positions valuable. Like it is what makes an entire football team, and not just a 7-on-7 show from the offense that is able to operate at will. There was another point that I was going to make, and now I completely forgot it. So
let's take a call, and then I know you got to run soon. We're gonna get through these calls.
Hey guys, happy Tuesday. It is C3 now. What up, Kyle here?
What's up, man?
Just real quick, you guys are talking about the Clowney Gilmore situation. I feel like in the draft conversations that we've had, we've identified both an edge rusher and a corner as positions of need. If we get both of them, that means, even on a 1-year deal, that means it gives us another year to be able to draft people to play at those positions. So I'm all for giving them an extra year because we really don't have that many picks this year. So if we get somebody like that on a 1-year deal and eliminate the need right now, next year we can use our first or second round pick on a player of a higher caliber than what we're going to get in the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah, you use free agency to set up the
basically
draft.
it for me. Great show. Keep at it.
Thank you. We'll take one more real quick.
C3 Paisans, how you doing?
What's up, my man?
Shout out to all the other C3
I made
fucking
cutlets
maniacs
last night.
in there. All the guys and the broads. What is it, like 2 or 3 broads? Yeah, something like that.
Well, guess what?
Anyways,
Joe
you guys are talking.
going after him.
Stefon Gilmore and Clowney is like a combo piece, a little 2-piece action. You know what I'm saying? I kind of like the idea. We could use some veteran presence on that defense, especially since we have such a young team. I don't think bringing in some, fucking no-name jobbers are going to really spark anything. I know Gilmore's kind of limited, but I think he's still got some tread on the tires. And, Clowney, he is what he is. So I honestly think, instead of relying on drafting either position and hoping that shit pans out, you could still draft either position. But getting those 2 guys on the defense, I think that would help tremendously. Yeah, just my opinion. Yeah, I think it could use a couple old heads in there.
All right, Paisan, thank you very much. Shit. And I'm going to squeeze one more short one in before.
Yep. How you all doing?
It's good, bro.
I feel like we are in a misdirection. I feel like next year we will be looking at a quarterback, sadly, with Dave Tepper under the helm, that owner. I do love the Dan Morgan hire. Once again, I'm not too happy about the head coach, but what could we say? Ben Johnson want to charge us $10 to $15 million for the head coach position. But yeah, if you guys get a chance, I'd definitely like to talk to you all.
Man, thanks for calling in. We appreciate it, man. A lot of people in the calls. We still have a lot to go. Got behind again with miss my Cody already. I miss my Cody.
I'm over here like looking at stats and stuff, completely ignoring that.
So I guess we go back to this. We don't want to recover too much ground. Hey, Ricky, did you remember what you were going to say? B, I had a yes or no question for you, which I forgot in the process. And C, to the caller that goes on there with, or not goes on, that mentioned Ben Johnson. I think missing on Ben Johnson is a blessing in disguise. If Ben Johnson comes in here, I feel like all of the talk, all of this, I don't know if I would be that way, but I think everybody would have this. It's just like rinsing and repeating what happened last year and expecting, be like, oh, the division is down, this and that. I really feel like we're playing with house money right now.
Yeah. I did not remember what I was going to say. That's way gone for me. That's, a thing of the past. It'll never happen. As far as the Ben Johnson thing, look, I was a huge Ben Johnson proponent. I still believe in him wholeheartedly as an offensive mind and as a leader of a football team, to be completely honest. I think that he can translate in that way.
Sure.
But I'm not going to complain that he's not here because I do like who is here. Maybe I would feel differently if we ended up with Dan Quinn as our head coach, because I'm not a fan of Dan Quinn. And that's not to say that he can't work out in Washington. But right. I don't think that was at all what this football team needed, a guy like Dan Quinn to come in after a guy like Frank Reich. Part of what I like so much about Ben Johnson was the intuitiveness, the creativeness of the offensive scheme that he runs, the emphasis on the offensive line, where it seemed like Frank Reich and his scheme was almost the antithesis of that, where the offensive line was just like hey, I don't really know what's happening here, but I'm going to have a whole bunch of guys running hitches and it's going to end up working out. So I like the fact that we're looking at a completely different animal. We're looking at a detail-oriented dude who has literal mathematical equations on how he finds success and he wants to build, and then also has the charisma and personality. It's part of what I liked about Ben Johnson, right? A little bit of those same elements. Dave Canales is a little bit less proven as far as his body of work as a coordinator. Now, he's been around as a positional coach for a really long time, though.
And maybe we give him too much credit for that. Sometimes I worry about that. Is it's like, Oh, we did this with Fitterer a lot when he came from Seattle. It's like, oh, he was in the building. I mean, he fucking knew the garbage man. He knew everybody. Correct. But Canales has worked with, and wow, I'm trying to not get to it. We're talking big comebacks.
Yeah.
Geno Smith is arguably the biggest
for sure
comeback player in the history of football.
And he still had a solid year last season, but it wasn't the level of year that he had under Canales as the pass game coordinator, quarterback coach, right?
Right.
So when you look at, and again, man, we're going to find out with Baker Mayfield. Baker just got paid, and you take away that entire offensive staff. I personally anticipate a bit of regression there.
I agree
on that
too.
offense.
I agree, and I like Baker.
I don't mean that in a way of I think Baker sucks.
Right.
I wanted Baker to work out here really badly, to be completely honest. I like the chip on his shoulder. I like the mentality that Baker comes with.
His wife is so
we were Baker
hot.
Bottoms for a while.
His wife's pregnant right now, and she is a smoke show, homie. Oh my goodness!
Congratulations, Baker and Mrs. Baker. I'm happy for them for that.
Bacon. Man, whatever. Throw it in the whatever as fast as you can.
But I liked Baker, so it's not that I don't believe in him as a player, but I don't believe that he's necessarily going to find that same level of success without a guy who is as calculated as Dave Canales. And Russell Wilson's
was a
another
rocket ship. That's the other thing is sometimes it's not about whether like regression to the mean. It was a rocket ship of success 100%. For these guys. And so I don't know if it's Canales that's got to do with any of it, but to me that made sense. We'll take this next call.
Oh, y'all must have thought I forgot. Hell no. It's showtime, bro. What's up? It's Lou from Fort Myers. And I just wanted to say, man, thank y'all, bruh. Thank y'all, bruh. It touched my heart, you know what I'm saying? I ain't even called to drop out no sports news, but just to call to show some love. Cody said I'd get excited every Tuesday. Man, it's not even like that. It's like, when is Tuesday coming, bro? I need to hear my boys, bro. You know what I'm saying? I need to hear my boys, bro. These
Y'all
are
got good fans,
dogs.
man.
CK, spam it. Dogs. You know what I'm saying? These are the real dogs right here. These are the real players. These are the difference makers that are not on the field. You feel me? But yeah, man, I'm very touched, bro. Cody, Tony, I love all y'all, bro. CK, I love all y'all. Greg, G Baby, D, Panther Fickle, you know what I'm saying? Kristen Ledane, everybody, bro. Shout out everybody. I'm not even in the stream yet, but I just had to get this off my chest, man.
Thanks
I need a shirt that says, when is it Tuesday? Because that's what I feel like. When is it Tuesday, man? It's Lou from Fort Myers. Y'all already know what's going on. They in the talks with my boy Stefon Gilmore. You know what I'm saying? So this time I'm going to have to buy a jersey. If we get a Clowney, then I'm going to get a Clowney jersey. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, I'm going to hop in the stream right now, but I had to get this off my chest real quick. Show love and everything. You know,
we appreciate it, Lou. We appreciate it, Lou. That's Lou for Fort Myers. He's got more to say in a moment. You mentioned, and Ricky, first, I want to thank you big time for coming on. One, because you're always welcome, and just like anybody who calls in, and we're like, this is a open kind of platform show. I did message you hysterically late, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I've even felt dumb sending a message, so I appreciate it. You mentioned that we got good fans.
Do.
And you know what, man, is like, and this is just my 2 cents of anybody that's trying to get in these streets of YouTube.
Sure.
Is I started this in 21st. I started this as a website that we thought we were going to be writing like Cat Crane for a long time or whatever.
Yeah.
And I realized that no one reads that. And I love to write too. And
same.
But I just have felt this is that, and I think that's why everybody responds really well to you when you come on this podcast, is that you have a thoughtful opinion, but you never feel like you're just pontificating, or at least I don't feel like you're just pontificating to me. And I think that that's where our fans have really just been receptive, is like, I'm just trying to work through it.
Sure.
You know, I'm just trying to work through it with y'all, not trying to tell you what to think. And this is where I get, and I don't know if the internet has changed in the last year or if I'm just getting older.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't know Bo. You don't know. And I'm like, God, man, you're right. I don't. I don't. I just was hoping to talk about it. And Ricky, I wanted to thank you for giving us so much time to talk about it. You are a great guest.
Man, absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. And don't ever feel foolish about hitting me up late for this kind of stuff, man. Look, I love talking ball. It's probably like one of my fatal flaws, right? Like I can do it just about anywhere that I am, anytime with anybody. But I do genuinely appreciate coming on here and talking. I respect what you guys have built. The duration of you guys sustaining and growing is impressive, and it's something that I admire about you guys in the show. We don't always agree on everything. I don't agree with anybody.
Hope not.
I don't agree with anybody
not.
all the time, to be completely honest. And it says more about the people being smart that they disagree with me than it is that, you know, I'm some intelligent person because I disagree with other people. I think that it is a great thing to have an open platform and have everybody be able to discuss and feel comfortable to be different and say what they actually mean and not be called stupid for not understanding it. Absolutely. There are plenty of people that are stupid, and they let that be known very loud and clear. A lot of the conversations that any of us have had together have never even teetered on that, in my opinion. So I appreciate that with you guys.
If we got to tell people they're stupid, where it's like, you're either cool, you ain't, man, we all know you're stupid. We don't got to tell you.
That's it, man.
But we do want to let you not only thank you, but we want the people that have been, they're our family, man. These people listen to you. And the best part about a long form podcast, Ricky, like this, because people are like, this is so fucking ridiculous. These are the people that will listen to every single thing.
That's right.
So tell them where and when, not only on Twitter, but they can find your podcast. And one day you're going to call me up late and say, hey, Tony, come on this show.
Get you on the show, man. You can find me. So I do my grunt work at Cat Crave. I am a contributor for a very good Panthers blog. I work with some really good people over there too. Shout out to them. But yeah, I've been slacking a little bit on that. We're coming up to draft player profile season. I get very active with that. So you'll see more from me coming if you have interest in finding out about draft prospects. My podcast is the Bow Body Show on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, anywhere that you could find your media that you digest. And then Twitter, Ricky Bowbody and the Bowbody Show are the handles. Find me on any of that. We've got great guests so far, man. I had Vashti Hurt from Carolina Blitz on last week and got to know a little bit more about her backstory. It's a thing that I'm doing with the podcast too, man. I want to do a little bit more than just talk ball, just talk analytics. I want to talk people, man, because all of us, we have these conversations with people in everyday life, man. And like, it's because we have relationships with people. Relationships are the foundation of all of our opinions and what we give a shit about. So I want to touch on a little bit more than that. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, come holler at me, come watch the show. Hopefully I'll keep bringing things for everybody.
Totally. Thank you so much, Ricky. You have a great evening, and I will message you on a Tuesday night until you message me.
I can't wait, man. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
CK, not actually, I was a little nervous because I saw a lot of there are calls left, but not as many as I suspected.
Yo, it's Lou from Fort Myers, back with a banger.
If I didn't love you, Lou, I wouldn't
one of the
play
callers,
this.
I don't know who said it, but he said we're getting too hyped. Bro, Tony said it plenty of times, bro. You can't get any worse than this. Honestly, like me, I'm a delusional Panthers fan, right? So what I did is I put a pick that we would win the division and we would win the NFC, right? I've seen the AI thing say we play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and win against the Chiefs against the Super Bowl. So I was like, oh snap. Then I also saw another stat with first time head coaching and like a rookie quarterback, they always end up going to the playoffs, right? And it happened with D'Amico Ryans and Stroud. But the thing is, Bryce isn't a rookie. But I don't care, bro. Honestly, I have a fantasy draft curse, and any person I pick with my first round pick always gets injured for the year. So y'all know what I'm doing. I'm taking one for the team. I'm drafting Kirk Cousins. Them dirty birds, bro. I'm picking Kirk Cousins, bro. I'm picking Kirk, though. Ain't nothing wrong with, you know what I'm saying? But, like, I ain't got no grudge against Kirk Cousins, but.
But we got a grudge against the
Or
Falcons.
I could be even worse. I could be even more flawed and pick out Bijan. But I feel like Bijan ain't going to stop their offense. I got to get rid of Kirk Cousins, and they're going to have to put someone like Desmond Ridder back in, right? So, yeah, we're screwing over the dirty birds. Let me know who I should pick with my
Oh.
I had Christian McCaffrey, bro. It's and then I think I picked CMC twice in back-to-back years he got hurt. It was either CMC or Saquon, but whatever. It's 4 years in a row, about to be 5th year that whoever I draft with my first-round pick in fantasy always gets hurt. So, and it's not like a regular injury. It's season-ending injury. Like, you're out of the league. Like, I picked Rodgers in one of my other leagues, and look what happened to Rodgers. I thought he was going to ball out.
It happened to me, too.
You know,
happened to me.
Hey, just drop a comment. I want y'all to comment on who should I definitely pick with my first round. You know what I'm saying? I might do Mahomes.
Nah, gotta go in division.
Knows, bro? But love y'all, man. I can't wait to tune in tomorrow or today, depending on how I'm feeling, man. I got work in the morning, but
appreciate it.
Love y'all, bro.
Appreciate it. You know, somebody told me a great piece of advice when it comes to, well, actually not advice because you can't really figure it out when it comes to fantasy. It's not about getting the best player in the first round. It's about not missing in the first round.
Right.
You know, it's like you can't afford to miss on a player and they get hurt. They don't produce. That's even the problem with the number 1 pick overall with that is like, gosh, but the entire first round, we've got 2 more calls, you guys.
Sweet.
And
then we shall be off.
Well, we got
our next segment.
Up. Yeah.
You know what's going on, everybody? It's me, C-Dog 1983 TV. Whenever you come in here to this channel, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the great fucking content. They go live every Tuesday. And they got the free fall every Friday. They got the game simulation on Saturday. You know, we didn't have the game simulation last year. There was no need because Bryce Young is fucking trash. You know, then they got them go live every Sunday, you know. A live recap after the game and everything. But, man, it's really, I mean, oh, man, it's hard being a goddamn Panther fan right now. But you just think about it, man. No McCaffrey, no DJ Moore. You could have got 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. Let him go for fucking nothing, you know. Really, man, look, I'm going to make this shit short, man. I can't wait for Bryce Young come out here and fall on his fucking face again for all these goddamn Bryce fixables, you know what I'm saying? You're going to come out here and be a fucking bum. One thing I am confident is, goddamn Morgan done fixed the line, whatever. It wasn't a fucking line fault, you know what I'm saying? But now, it's no excuse for this fucking little bitty bitch, you know what I'm saying? So when he come out here next year and be fucking trash, his ass is fucking gone. Goddamn, they're going to bring in Shador, you know, Shador or somebody, you know what I'm saying? So, man, there's nothing to worry about, man. Bryce Young would be selling cars in 2 years, you know what I'm saying, or a year from now. That little motherfucker, he's a fucking bum, you know? But I'm talking about, I don't know why I want to get this motherfucker so much goddamn leeway and so much bullshit, but, you know, all these fucking excuses, man. Just tell me this, man. Anybody in here, even on a fucking job, they give you 90 days before you get benefits. You know, they don't just give them to you when you walk in the goddamn door. They got to see goddamn, but are you worth the goddamn insurance of these benefits? You know, they just got they can't give it to you.
Old CBA.
Like, come on, man, on your job right now. Go on your job right now and goddamn don't do your job for goddamn 16, 17 weeks. You bitch, you won't have no goddamn job. What's wrong with y'all? You can't go out here right now, nowhere on nobody goddamn job and don't do your fucking job and keep a fucking job. So how the fuck you think Bryce Young gonna be our fucking quarterback and he can't even be a fucking quarterback? The fuck? Y'all fucking kill me with this shit, man. I don't understand, man. I ain't gonna call you slow. I ain't gonna call you retarded. But I can't wait the next year. The motherfucker come out here and fall on his fucking face.
Keep looking at.
And I'm calling it right now. We're not gonna win a fucking game. Last year I said we were gonna win 2 games. This year we're not winning a fucking game. 0. So go ahead and get ready for this shit. We're gonna have a number 1 pick. We're gonna get goddamn sugar. You know.
Oh my God.
Anyways, whenever you come in here, make sure you hit the goddamn like button. Make sure you subscribe to the goddamn channel.
Thank you, C-Dog. The one thing I will remind or caution that take does not work in the old Sam Bradford. Who was the Jamarcus Ruffle? Jamarcus Russell. He ate too many ruffles. You know what I'm saying? Is like there was a day, and I'm not gonna lie, I enjoy the structure to the new CBA where we don't have to pay an unproven player for like 20 years ago, we would have had to pay Bryce Young like $200 million
in today's NFL. Yeah, exactly.
You know, or whatever it is. Like, and so I do like that where Sam Bradford was like the highest paid player on his team, and he hadn't even played yet. All right, last call. And I'm gonna look at
what's going on, my C3 family? D. Sanford, North Carolina. Just thought I'd take a stop from work for a second.
Thank you, brother.
Y'all real quick.
Dude.
Shout out to the whole C3 family, the whole rundown. Hope Cody feel better. Hearing the coaches and
good people. We got good people that listen to us, CK.
It all sounds good.
Yeah, we do.
I'm cool with it. I'm happy with it. It gives me hope, like, you know, they're just targeting certain areas. This is a very, like, awkward time when you got, like, that less than 30 days to the draft. You get all antsy and stuff, and you toss around so many scenarios. You don't know what other teams are thinking. But it's cool. I mean, my whole projection is I feel like we're a 5 to 6 win team. I think we're going to keep pounding. I think that we're going to put the work and the effort in, that even though the wins don't necessarily reflect it, other free agents are going to see that, yeah, keep pounding still means something in the Carolinas, and we're going to get into those steps of being better. Y'all, I just want to say shout out to the C3 Spaces crew. Y'all are dope. I love y'all. Hey, and at the end of the day, keep pounding.
Keep pounding.
Thank you. Great call to end the night. C3 Panthers podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com, where every Tuesday night we chop up the latest Panthers news and opinions from the fan perspective. I jinxed it when I came into this motherfucker. Cody, CK, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry.
It's all good. Luckily, we're not getting up super early tomorrow. So,
no, I'm on spring break. You said you and your family. I was already thinking about me. I was already looking. I was like, I'm on spring break, motherfucker.
Hey, you can bring your kids down to the Great Wolf Lodge.
My kids are old, bro.
They would still love it, dude.
They would, but guess what? I ain't paying for it. Look, we got one last segment. We're gonna roll out of here quickly, guys. Thank you. If I missed, I'm sorry. Haven't done great with the comments. Cody's fantastic. You guys don't know how much Cody does, not only for his personality on the show, but behind the scenes to make my life easier. But we got one last segment to rock. I just want to thank everybody before we do it. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate your support. Smash the thumbs up, subscribe. Let's ice some fools up.
Ice up, son. Ice up.
It's the Ice Up segment. It's our homage to Steve Smith. It's where we tell someone to ice up, toughen up to get it together. CK, I've got one. Do you got one?
I mean, mine's just going to be maybe a little too soon, but it's about those people that fell into the river this morning because of that ship.
I haven't even heard about it. What happened?
You didn't hear about what? Are you kidding me?
No, didn't even hear about it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I'm going to have to pull this up then. Holy cow. That is a surprise to me.
People in a river fell
Dude, did
in.
you not hear about Baltimore?
No, I've been off. I'm on spring break. I didn't even open my phone. I don't think till like 4 o'clock today.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to show you what happened here.
It was awesome. I did sleep I've been catching up on some sleep the last day or two. It was amazing.
All right,
All right, let's see what you got. How are you gonna? And
so you are gonna, like, everybody in the chat is gonna be thinking, what in the world's going on? Why
all
can't
right,
you know?
how many people in here have y'all seen it? What he's about to talk about? What I want to hear.
I lost it. Hold on, let me get it.
Oh my goodness. It's bad. Then I'm gonna love it. He said it's some gnarly shit, Tony. That I'm gonna fucking be all in on this. Fall in a river. Like, I mean, what the fuck? How do you gnarlily fall in a river? That's what I want to know. I can't wait. Hold on.
You're gonna see.
Can't wait. Baltimore, you said?
Yeah. Watch this ship right here.
Oh.
Bro.
Yeah, you hit the pylon?
Oh, just wait, dude.
Oh, it got a lot. Oh no. Oh no. Oh. Recovery. Turn. Where are these cars at? These cars are about to get jumped off the. Oh, God.
Bro. Yeah.
I'm surprised the whole bridge I'm not surprised, right? That the whole bridge, because I feel like architecture requires all structural support to be supported by other sports. Right. But I also feel like, damn, I thought that those bridges would have had some sort of holy, how many people died?
So right now, last I heard, they were actually they said that the ship was able to get a mayday out and they were able to close the bridge, but I saw a lot of cars on there in that video just now. So I don't know, but they said at one point they were only searching for 7 people. They had rescued 2 out. But I haven't looked at the news since maybe about 1 this afternoon. So
the whole bridge, bro. Like you was hoping that it would stop, like 3/4 of it would go.
No, dude, it went
home.
The way, dude. It's wild. And what's wild about it, I'm going to go back to this. I want you to pay attention.
Tim says everyone has seen it, except for me. The professor's on spring break, Tim.
So what I want you to focus on is in the middle of that arc, in the middle of the bridge, you'll see flashing lights. That's this is Baltimore. There's flashing lights. That's a construction crew pouring concrete. That was right there on those in the middle. So, and I don't know.
That's a tragedy.
Dude, you're not kidding, bro.
All right. So I'll let you finish your own ice up.
Yes, I'm gonna ultimately it's not to the people, even though the water was ice cold. They did ice up, to be fair. And as of now, they don't believe that anybody would have survived outside of the 2 that they rescued. So it's going to be a recovery. They believe 6 are dead after the collapse.
Yeah, I mean,
but the ice up is going to be that, I don't know. Again, the problem with this is it is incredibly unfortunate.
How did the power go out? Like, how does
they don't know.
Worst possible time, right? Like that's the thing. It's everything was at the worst possible.
Dude, well, you saw it was the worst possible time. And when they did get power, they steered back into the actual bridge.
Well, he was trying to miss it. And then he didn't know what was going on. Imagine being that pilot
I know.
The light comes on and you're like, oh shit, I'm trying to hit the bridge, not hit the bridge. God.
Bro. And
terrible.
What I think is wild is, like, if you go back and watch it, you could see cars going across that bridge like until the last minute, and luckily I don't see any cars going across it in that last moment.
TK, I wish you wouldn't have ice up picks. Your ice up. All right. My ice up pick. This shit was fucking bananas. And all right, let's do it. I'm not supposed to tell anybody about this.
Okay.
So I went over to Buddy's house, right? And I don't know.
What was his name?
Nice try there. Nice try. I mean, I'm not like great acquaintances, right?
Yeah.
So, man, it was Saturday night. It's probably, it was a little in the later hour, which, midnight or so, and it was one of those, I feel like, and I don't know, maybe it's just personality types that always want to do stuff. Right. And I don't think he's trying to impress me, but it's like, hey, check out this muscle car I got. And then he's putting the battery in it, turn the bitch on. Then I'm like, oh, that's cool. He's like, get in it. And I'm like, oh, God. Right. And so then I'm like, man, you've been drinking, I'm like, well, when I drink, he's like driving in his yard. Right. Like, just got to do something next. So I'm not a gun person, CK.
Yeah.
And I know this person kind of is, sort of. They were. I don't constitute them as that anymore. But I was like, man, I want to go shoot guns. I want someone that knows guns to teach me about, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have a shotgun that I bought for disaster, like power goes out for like, but I've never even shot this shotgun. I own a shotgun I've never even shot. Bought it at a pawn shop. Don't worry. So he's like, oh, like I said that just kind of like hanging out, not like, oh, let's shoot fucking guns right now. Shit. You know what I'm saying? So then he's opening the gun safe, showing every fucking gun he's got, this and that. No big deal. What gun people do. Right? So hanging out there still, this is happening pretty quickly. He's got this gun. It looks like it's actually, CK, a gun that fucking you probably use on Call of Duty. It's he said it was a 9mm. It looks like a SWAT team gun.
With a 9mm?
It's got a collapsible stock that can go in, so it can become like a. Right. It's got, God, what is the name? It's gonna come to me in a second. Looks badass. Like it's like a car. Starts with a C, I think. Carbine.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that. I'm like, oh, that's cool, this and that. And he's like, every gun pull the mag out, does this, that. And we're chilling. This is happening pretty quickly. We're just like, oh, I'm like, oh, and I'm not like in there. And I am the other person. When I come to your house, like, I just want to sit and fucking drink this beer and talk. Like, I don't need to go start the muscle car, anyway. It was a carbine. So this motherfucker, he's like, here, hold it. I'm like, okay, I'll hold it. Like it's like everything. It's always something. So I hold it.
Okay.
No mag, this and that. I'm like, fine. Oh, this is cool. I don't even shoot guns, but it looks pretty awesome. But hand it back to him too. Motherfucker puts the magazine back in it. Right? I'm just sitting there. I'm just like chilling. This motherfucker puts the loaded magazine in this bench. Pulls it up, fucking pulls the, and I don't even know shit about guns. He chambers the rifle. He chambers this bitch. And I'm like, oh God. Like, I might sit here like, oh, why'd you do all that? And he's like, boom, shoot the fucking hole in his own garage door.
Oh my.
And a back garage hit his house.
Oh my God.
As soon as this motherfucker goes off in his face, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? And he goes, oh shit, I'm fucked. I was like, I didn't know you were fucked up. That fucked up. goddamn, guns. I could have, he said, it was an accident. I said, bitch, you chambered the shit. It's not an accident. You chambered it. It ain't an accident, bitch. And then I looked at the garage door, because it was a backyard.
Yeah.
Garage. It won't like the garage that's connected to your house. It's like one in the way back. I said, if that motherfucker hit my truck, I am going to fucking shoot you. And I grabbed that light. I was looking out there. I just paid my truck off, bro. And I was like this. And you should have seen his face turn white because it sobered him. I was like, I didn't even know you were, like he was like, oh, I'm fucked. I was like, bitch, what the fuck? It's like, I'm sorry. No, I was like, that's just, you know what? He tried to explain it to say, I said, bitch, shut the fuck up. It's not an accident. It might be a mistake, motherfucker, but that won't no accident. That ain't an accident. I said, I don't even know shit about guns, but you put the bullets in and you go, and then you, duh. Shot a hole in his garage, dude.
You said it hit his house. Did it do anything to the house?
Not really, man. The house was it was where I think it did. We were out there looking with the flashlight, and all of a sudden this motherfucker's sobering up real quick, worried about if he shot his family.
Oh man.
So I would say this is my ice up to this is, I know people say don't drink and shoot guns. I agree. Totally agree. My ice up is to not say it was an accident when you were just dumb as fuck.
Yeah.
I was just like, when I said this and I was like this, I was holding my beer. Shit went off. I was like, what the and I said this. I said, and he was like, he said it was an accident. I said, bitch, I don't know shit about guns, but I know when you pull that little motherfucker back and you aim it and you pull the trigger, the shit's gonna go off. Anyway, he didn't misfire. That motherfucker, you don't chamber that bitch.
No.
Like, I don't know. There's no excuse for it. Anyway, that's my sub. CK, thanks for hanging out. Let me find this. I don't know. I think there's an outro. I haven't, you know what? Oh, he's so cool. Let's get the fuck out of here. See you guys.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.